Hello, this is Tony Mecker. I'm coming to you from Chicago. As usual, I just got in, and it looks like we haven't missed anything yet. Good morning, everybody. Nice to see you.
I just wanted to alert the court and the state that the defense's witness, Aaron Bruno, is here, and he will probably be coming into the courtroom to listen to some of the testimony this morning.
Okay.
As an expert, he's
Okay.
able to do so.
Anything on the stick? No? You know, I forgot something in my office. I'll be right back. Hold on. Give me a minute or half a minute.
All right.
Hey, at least he was thinking about protection.
I mean, from who? Ground?
I mean, he don't know what's on this ground.
Look at baby oil. Maybe that's what I touched. Maybe it was baby.
I hope it was baby oil.
What's up, brother? How you doing?
I'm doing all right. How are you doing?
Good, good. Thanks for holding down the fort, as usual.
No, it was fun.
Box fort, as it were.
Exactly. Someone's got to do it.
Night and knee. The Leonards are assembling. I had a little meeting this morning, and it was running late, and I was in an Uber, so I texted John. I think he handled it.
Yeah, I let everyone know.
So we have an expert coming on for the defense.
I think that might be it.
Accident reconstruction.
I think that there's a reconstruction expert, and I don't know if they need anyone else.
So does that make if they're doing that, does the state come back with a rebuttal expert? If they have,
I would imagine so. I know that they reserved Officer Idiot as a potential defense witness as well. So I think that they might just
him
after their expert comes in and just be done with it.
When I was preparing, Your Honor, I was reviewing PTIs for Ms. Dominguez, who's one of the defendant's expected witnesses. And I just want to make sure that she was reminded of the limited scope of her testimony because she sure had a lot to say. And the purpose of her testimony is very limited to that one incident of mace, and that was it.
Well, a couple of things, if you want to talk about it right now. The state has asked witnesses if Mr. Areola had a gun, if he carried a gun. So they've opened the door to that. They've asked witnesses if Mr. Areola or elicited testimony that Mr. Areola was honest. So they've opened the door to that. But I do intend to visit with her. She's coming in about half an hour early to visit with me so that I can talk to her about the scope of her testimony. But we certainly are entitled now to bring a couple of other things out, excuse me, based on the state's questioning and the evidence that has come out.
Well, can I respond to the one about the honesty? As
okay, we're not going to go into the character his characters to truthfulness.
But we already have.
This suggests that there's going to be,
as you recall at the bench,
more.
When Ms. Moss
Like
brought
the
it up,
defense
I
that
said,
you thought
I
there
didn't
might be.
that. I will lead her so she doesn't go into that. And if the court feels that the door has opened, then I'm going to pursue it further with this witness and other witnesses. And I wasn't allowed to do that.
Okay, we're not going to get into the issue of character for truthfulness. Okay, but to visit with her before, she's not going to come in right away, right?
Oh no, she's not coming till the afternoon.
Yeah, okay.
But obviously they've asked whether or not he had any guns. She can comment on that. I didn't make the state ask that question. They asked it, so now I get to follow up with my witnesses on it.
But we're not going to get. We'll discuss this more. But right now, I'm telling you, we're not going to get into the issue of his character for truth.
Sure, I understand.
All right.
I've heard you.
Okay.
Okay.
Bring him in, Loretta.
All right, so they're going to be putting on more of a defense than I anticipated.
Yeah, this is gonna get saucy.
All right, let me get a coffee real quick.
Oh, good. I get to play my new clips I made from the Naughty Adventure.
He was dry humping all that, dude.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying. He was getting after it when I pulled up.
For those of you wondering, that has nothing to do with the current case. Nothing whatsoever. Just fun with the Naughty Adventure.
Good morning, you may be seated.
Good morning, Kathy. Thank you.
Okay, defense, you may call your first witness.
Thank you. The defense calls Dean Cummings to the stand.
Mr. Cummings, come up here.
Holy, are you kidding me? Have they lost their freaking minds? I can't believe this. Holy, oh my, what are you thinking? You have this case won. This is the dumbest move I've ever seen.
What the hell did I just miss?
You see who's sitting on the stand?
Oh my God, why?
What on earth are you thinking, defense? You have this case won. This guy's got a horrible past that's coming out now.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor.
No, don't do that.
Not quite yet, but I will.
Why is this happening?
They have done it. Oh, no, you didn't.
Good morning, sir.
Good
No.
morning.
Could you please introduce yourself to the jury?
No.
My name is
don't
Dean
do that.
Cummings.
And how old are you?
I'm 57.
And do you have any children?
I have 3 beautiful kids.
How old are they?
They're 9, 17, and 19.
And where are you from?
You've
I'm from
already
Alaska,
won the
Valdez,
damn case.
Alaska.
Why are you
Did you
doing
grow up in
this?
Alaska?
I grew up in Los Alamos, New Mexico,
How long did you live in New Mexico for?
It's all open.
until I was 23, 24 years old.
Okay. And where did you move to after you left New Mexico?
I moved to Valdez, Alaska.
What is this
What were you
case,
doing
Mike?
in Valdez, Alaska?
I ran a heli skiing business, a guide service.
And what does that mean for
This
those of
really
us that
sounds
aren't
fun.
really
I'm
into
not gonna lie to you.
skiing?
I offered a trip, a helicopter
My
skiing
bucket.
trip.
Are there
People would
any
book,
decent
a
attorneys
trip
in
from
New
all over the
Mexico?
world and fly into Valdez, Alaska. And we would take them out in helicopters into the mountains and ski them down mountains.
Hell,
We
yeah.
do multiple runs a day.
Let's
We would
do
sign
it.
up for six to 8 runs a day. And I would book out 4 groups a week and then one
I think I
private
might need
helicopter.
something
group.
stronger than coffee.
How does a boy from Los Alamos, New Mexico,
Fresh
end
cow.
up guiding heliski tours in Alaska?
Sorry.
I've been a skier my whole life. My dad taught me how to ski when I was in kindergarten, and I went on to make the U.S. ski team. And
I can't believe this is
I found my calling in big mountains and backcountry skiing. I went up to Alaska in '91 and got second place in the World Extreme Skiing Championships. And I had helicopter experience from when I was a younger man.
Who the fuck
So I
cares?
was asked by a helicopter company to start a heli
Sorry,
ski
I know it's
business,
too
so I
early
did.
in the stream, and it's
It's too early. Yes.
And so that's what you were doing in Alaska?
Exactly. I did other things too. I owned a small gravel pit and I developed 50 acres of property as well. So I was involved with some heavy equipment in the summertime, doing operations and then doing helicopter skiing in the wintertime.
And when did you leave Alaska?
I left Alaska in 2019.
And where did you go?
I ended up putting an office into Wilson, Wyoming.
This had to have been
do
his
helicopter
decision.
ski bookings. I was a booking office basically.
Okay. And did you stay in Wyoming?
I did. I was in Wyoming until 2020.
Pink Candy, we don't
And where
care
did you
about
go
his
then?
opinion.
Then I came down here to New Mexico.
It's not relevant.
And why did you come back to New Mexico?
I was looking at finding a place for the summertime and the early fall. I'd spend my winters in Alaska
think I have
and
enough
most of the year
cigarettes
in New
for this.
Mexico. I was looking for a piece of land.
And what were you going to do with that land?
I was going to build a house and start doing some hunting guiding. I'm a I'm an avid hunter. I live subsistence in Alaska. I'd hunt a moose every year and a mountain goat every year. I'd put away about 500 pounds of meat every year for my family.
And a Hubert
And so you wanted to
every
do
now
that
and
here in
again.
Mexico?
Yeah, I really enjoy hunting. I'm pretty good at it, and there's a good market for it here in New Mexico.
And where were you looking at properties?
I was looking in the area of Largo Canyon, which is basically everything from San Ysidro all the way to Farmington. I was looking for property in that area. There's just an incredible amount of wildlife and game in those areas, the Camazon area and the Largo Canyon area.
And how did you first meet Guillermo Arriola?
I was just looking around for a different land and exploring some of the region by Camazon Peak. And I ran into 5 horses. I was also looking to get a horse with a piece of property. And I ran into 5 horses that looked really beautiful. They looked really healthy. And at the same time, I ran into the horses. Two guys came by on horseback. One of the ranchers from the Camazon area, him and his one of his cowboys. And I asked them about the horses, and they told me, yeah, that there's a chance he would sell one of those horses. And I said, well, how do I find this guy? And he said, he just was riding down the road on his horse. We're surprised you didn't see him when you drove down. And so I just took note of it, and then I left. And as I was driving out, I ran into a gentleman on a horse, and I was pretty sure it was going to be the owner of the horses in that property. And I stopped and talked to him.
And was that Guillermo Arriola?
That was.
And so tell us a little bit about that first meeting on the road.
So I was in my truck. He was on a horseback. He dismounted off his horse, and we started a conversation at the window of my truck. He went on to tell me more than I was even looking for. I was looking for land, but I didn't think he had land. I just thought he had horses at the time. And he told me he actually didn't have horses, that it was someone else's horses on his property. But he had a chunk of land he was going to sell. He was going to sell a small ranch. And I said, I'd be interested in looking at it. So we decided to exchange phone numbers, and that we could reconvene at another time so he could show me the property.
So you didn't see the property that day?
No, we just made it so that we would call each other and schedule a time to come look at the property.
Did you make any observations regarding Mr. Arriola's demeanor that day?
I did. He did smell like liquor that first time I met him. And as I was about to drive off, he was having a hard time mounting his horse. He couldn't get up on his horse. His horse was kind of dragging him along, and he was trying to climb up on this big old horse. My observation that he was intoxicated.
Okay. When did you next speak with Mr. Arriola?
A couple days after that, I gave him a phone call, and he was willing to go look at the property as soon as he could, which was just a couple days out with the weekend coming up. So we scheduled a time that I would go out there and meet up with him, and he could show me the property.
And did you end up going out there?
I did.
Tell me about that first day on the ranch.
So I drove out there, and there was 2 gates to go through to get into the ranch. I drove through, and the gates were open, which was nice. And I drove on the property, and it was much nicer than I anticipated. It had like 4 really beautiful areas for horse corrals, and then it had land on the side where you could graze the horses. That was some other landowner.
You're subjecting your client to cross-examination for this.
Let his horses graze in that area. It was really nice. There was a small trailer, had a water system, so I had water.
Yeah.
He ran solar power for electricity, so it was off the grid. And he was really adamant about showing me everything with the water and with the solar panels. He invited that I come out there and stay there anytime.
Prior conviction.
And, that way I would get a handle on how the water system worked and how the electrical system worked with the solar panels.
How did you and Mr. Arriola get along that time?
And
We got along just fine.
after the judge
We
already
have a
said,
lot in common with,
reputation
mountains
for
and deserts,
honesty is not
forests
coming
and
in.
stuff.
So what are you trying to
And
accomplish?
so, did you see Mr. Arriola again?
I did. He invited me to stay there and to use the trailer anytime I wanted. I'd also talked to him about, I let him know that I had a 5th wheel RV camper, and that we could do one of two things. I could purchase the property if he was interested in doing that, or I could just live out there and pay him $300 a month in my fifth wheel. I figured I would walk before I ran on this deal, get a handle on the property, since he was nice enough for me to stay out there and get a feel for how the water system worked and how the power system worked. So I ended up staying at the trailer the following weekend, and I explored the region.
I'll give him this. He's not coming across as a lunatic, which is
I went around and explored
potentially helpful.
Checking out wildlife and stuff like that.
And to be clear, Mr. Ariola was aware that you were out there?
Yeah, he was adamant about me staying out there to learn the water system and the electrical system.
So that weekend, that first weekend when you stayed out there, was he with you?
No, he wasn't. I had the whole place to myself, and I explored the whole region.
And after that weekend, did you speak with Mr. Ariola again?
I did. I spoke to him again, and I told him I was very interested in the land. I had already pulled out my fifth wheel RV, so I was already set up to start paying $300 a month for the rental of the spot where my camper sat. But I told him I was very interested in purchasing the property.
And I want to back up a little bit here, Mr. Cummings. Can you give us an approximate time frame of when you first met Mr. Ariola on that road that day?
I'm not too good with dates, but I'm pretty sure it was about 3.5 weeks before the incident. The incident was at the 29th of February. So I had
Rogan, it
met up
is
with him 3 weeks before the
the
incident.
defendant's absolute right to testify if they so choose. You can advise them
So
very
you and
strongly.
Mr. Ariola are having conversations
insist.
about how you can purchase
There's
the
nothing you
property
can
or
do to
rent the
stop them.
property.
Yes, I actually met him one time in Placitas at the grocery store, and we talked further about it. And he was very motivated to sell it, and I was very motivated to buy it.
And how were you getting along with him during all of these exchanges?
We got along pretty good. We had no problems. We seemed to have a lot in common.
Here for years, I
Was
don't
there a time
actually
when that
think that
started to change?
the lawyers were the one that made
I
that.
ended up staying out there one time when he stayed out there, and
I think he did.
we did some drinking. We drank a little bit of
And he
whiskey.
has a right to testify.
And he went into detail about having problems with his neighbors. He drank more than I did that night, and he
wouldn't.
seemed to really want to share a lot of his history with his neighbors with me.
Well, and before we get into the details of that, can you kind of explain how it was that the two of you ended up there
No,
together?
it's not a good idea. I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, he said he would come out on
Highly
a certain
advise
weekend
against
that I
it,
was
but
there.
it is his
and,
right.
I was excited to learn more about the watering system, so he actually walked me through the whole watering system. We went to where the well was drilled, where the containment. He had a secondary containment system that it would fill up. That's about a 500-gallon tank, and then he showed me how to irrigate all the trees. He had planted a lot of trees out there, and he showed me how to water all the trees out there, and then showed me a little bit more about the electrical system with the solar panel.
And you mentioned some whiskey.
Yeah, we had some whiskey. We drank some liquor that night after he showed me everything.
Who brought the whiskey?
He did.
Do you
Grateful
recall how
Bread,
much
yeah,
whiskey
I've been
you had to
involved
drink that
in,
night?
and again, I do
It was
civil
a
work.
bottle.
So
I
it's a little
can't
bit
remember if
different.
it was
I've had
completely full when we started.
clients that have
but,
refused
I probably had
to
5
settle
drinks.
and take it to
And
trial.
the bottle was
and
running
then
out. It only
the
had
other
a few
side
more
has a
drinks left
right
in it. He
to
seemed
call them
wanna
as a
finish
witness.
off that bottle, and he poured a few more drinks than I had personally.
You don't have Fifth Amendment rights in civil
He was
matters.
definitely liquored up.
And you mentioned that he started talking to you about problems he had with his neighbors.
Yeah, he started talking
Your
about.
Honor, I'm going to object to hearsay at this point.
Yeah, I've literally written to insurance companies saying, hey, your doctor's entirely unlikable. We really need to settle this. And the doctor insists on going to trial anyway, which is not a great place to be in.
Y'all out there bunny hopping. I'm out here dealing with a naked man humping the ground.
think I wrote a report once to the insurance company saying that their client was imperious, unlikable, and would make a terrible witness. But the client ultimately insisted on going to trial. I don't think that they renewed his policy. I don't know, but I'd imagine I wouldn't.
All right, so this gets back to one thing. The only thing that explains this for me is that if they do in fact have an affirmative duty to prove their affirmative defense, to prove their defense of self-defense.
That's where I'm increasingly thinking that Kurt might have been mistaken when he said it was only Ohio. I think that it might apply in New Mexico, because otherwise, why wouldn't the judge have tossed the murder charge in the direct
I only say that out of respect for the defense, who's been competent so far, so I don't think they would do something like this unless they had to. Maybe I'm being too generous.
Well, so real quick, Lori, it did not work out great. We ended up winning, but it was nail biting.
All right, so
Yeah.
Mr. Cummings, you were saying
I don't
Mr.
think that it was the
Ariola
lawyer's
had,
decision to put him on the
started
stand. I genuinely don't.
confide in you about some problems he had with his neighbors. Specifically, did he tell you about an incident where he attacked a car with a hammer?
He did. He told me he had scared the heck out of
Objection, Your
somebody.
Honor.
No, by
Hold on.
He's answered the question.
How do you get this in?
His knowledge is what's
With great difficulty.
You, I don't know if we should be doing this, but in open court, but you
I mean,
just
there's a
said
Dead Man's Act too,
to this incident.
especially when you kill the guy.
I'm sorry. Okay, thank you. Mr. Cummings, did Mr. Ariola tell you about an incident where he attacked a car with a
What is the
hammer?
hearsay exception?
he did. He told me he scared the heck out of a guy that had pulled into their driveway, the neighbor's
I
driveway.
can't imagine.
And
I don't know what it would be.
And the guy was scared to death.
I don't understand how this comes in.
And
This
how did
seems like
that make you
reversible
feel when you
error.
heard about that?
He
Yeah.
shared a few more incidences than that.
But how did it make you feel when you heard about that incident?
I had a red flag go up immediately. I figured out I didn't want to be on his bad side, and I needed to be careful on how I dealt with him to close the land deal.
Okay. And how did the evening end?
I went and slept in the back room. He showed me where the bunk bed was, and we got a couple blankets out of a Rubbermaid container, and I fell asleep in the back room, and he slept in where the fireplace is, which is basically the living room of this little trailer.
That's sparse.
And I'm going to show you what's
That's
already
guy's
been
stuff
admitted
there.
as State's Exhibit 46.
Somebody said character evidence, but it is the character of the
Is
decedent.
this the back bedroom where you?
I don't know.
Yes, it is.
And did you sleep on the lower bunk bed or the upper bunk bed?
I slept on the lower bunk bed, the one to the looker's right.
One thing I'll say for him is he doesn't appear insane, which there's lots of extra trial stuff that suggests that he's crazy. He may be.
Okay,
but
so
he
now we
doesn't
have the
look like
photo
it.
up. Which
Yeah, I
bed
was
did you
saying
sleep
that while
on?
you were
The
out.
one to
where
looker's
he's
right.
coming across
the
as
blue
rational.
mattress that's showing the mattress under the blanket.
And you see that other bed in the back with the boot box on it. Did you ever sleep on that bed?
I didn't.
And we've heard evidence that there was actually a rifle wedged between the mattress and the box springs of that bed. Were you aware that rifle was there?
I never did see it. I didn't know it was in there.
Okay.
Sarah, I get your points. I disagree.
Did you see Mr.
That was
Ariola again
submitted
after
for the
that
truth of the
evening
matter
drinking
asserted.
out at the ranch?
Yeah, we met up another time to go horseback riding.
Tell me about that.
We met out at the ranch again. We had scheduled a time to meet up, and he was going to give me one of the horses that was on the ranch with the purchase of the property. So I really wanted to know how everything worked, where the saddle was, where all the bridles were. And he was more than happy to show me everything. He really enjoyed being around horses. I could tell right away. So we saddled up the horses and we rode up the dirt road, probably a couple miles up the dirt road and into a small canyon and then rode back. It was kind of a short ride, but the horse was a great horse. I really enjoyed getting to know that horse. It was perfect for me to have a horse out there, one that was as big, as strong as the one that was out there.
And how did the two of you get along during this horseback ride?
And we got along just fine.
Did you see Mr. Ariola again after that?
I did, but that was the big day.
Did you ever meet with him at his office in Placitas?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I sure did. We had scheduled a time to meet in Placitas where he had his realtor. And he was going to meet me. He said he had an office in Placitas, and then we scheduled a time where I could go meet the realtor and see the contract.
And did you meet up with him?
I did. It was hard to find because I didn't know it was a little trailer that he was in. He was in a camping trailer, and I was looking for an office space. So I showed up on time, but I couldn't find exactly where they were at. And I finally called him up on the cell phone, and he walked me into where I could go into this gated area and go into where this little camper was.
And at that point in time during the meeting, did you have a chance to review the contract?
I did. I looked at the contract. It was pretty lengthy. I read it from front to cover. And
Mike, it looks like Vanguard gift
so
20 memberships if you want to do a
Did
shout
the
out.
realtor become irritated with you?
She definitely was short with me. She was pushing me to sign the agreement, and I wasn't ready to do so. I needed somebody to look at it. It was some of the language in the contract was beyond my scope of law and realty.
Did you ask to take that contract with you?
I did. I asked them if I could take the contract to an attorney or to a realtor, and she responded back to me that she can't do that or she could lose her realty license.
So what happened after that meeting?
What? That's crazy.
That was a pretty big red flag. Guillermo didn't
Sure
really
is.
speak up in the meeting. I could tell that Guillermo was a little bit bugged with his realtor because she wasn't really being very open with the agreement. And I just ended the meeting right then and there. It was a waste of time at that point. I needed to be able to convince Guillermo that I needed an attorney or a realtor to look at the contract. He seemed a little bit bugged with his
He's coming
attorney,
across
with his
as
realtor,
manifestly
too.
reasonable.
So did you leave that meeting without signing the contract?
I did. I left without signing the contract.
Were you still interested in buying the property?
Oh, yeah, I definitely was.
And did you speak with Mr. Ariola again after that meeting?
Yeah, we had another phone conversation, and he apologized for what had happened. And I asked him if there was another realtor we could work with or how we could work with the realtor that he had.
And did the two of you reach an agreement, or was it still open for discussion?
It was a vague conversation. He didn't go very far into meeting up again with a realtor or finding another realtor. So it was open-ended at that point.
Did you return to the property at some point?
I did. I went back to the property to stay out there again.
Were you still hoping to purchase the land?
Absolutely.
Was Mr. Ariola there when you arrived?
No, I got there late one night around 10, 11 o'clock, and nobody was there. So I'd put on a movie and watched a movie inside the trailer.
And what happened that evening?
I fell asleep in front of the TV, and then in the middle of the night, I woke up, and I smelled a propane smell in the trailer, which concerned me
Why would that concern you?
because propane is flammable.
Because, boom.
Now, you said that Mr. Ariola had spent a lot of time showing you the property and how it worked. How was this trailer heated?
With a wood fireplace.
What else did they use to heat it?
They had a small propane heater in the back bedroom, and he had a couple bottles on the back of the trailer that were propane bottles.
I'm going to show you what's already been admitted as State's Exhibit 61. Do you recognize what's depicted in this photo?
I do.
What is that?
It's a propane heater on its side. It looks like it either fell off or somehow tumbled off to the side there.
And where is that propane heater?
That's in the back bedroom.
Is that propane heater supposed to be sitting on the floor like that?
If I recall, it was hanging on the wall. I think there's a hanger just outside of this photograph where it was supposed to be hanging.
Okay. You know how it got on the floor?
Jess, I read that statute.
I'm
when I
guessing
was
because we got into a
covering the
altercation
case the other
that
day.
one of us bumped into it.
That's about a
Show you
jury
what's
instruction.
marked
It's not
as State's Exhibit
necessarily
75.
statutorily. There's still some.
Do you recognize what's depicted in that photo?
I do. There's some propane bottles.
Where are those propane bottles?
That's why I
They're
just
just
said I
on
wasn't
the
sure.
outside of the back bedroom where the altercation occurred.
So now you testified that you woke up in the middle of the night and you smelled propane.
Yeah, I did.
And that concerned you?
It did. Wasn't. The smell was really bad. It woke me up basically, and I got up and I was trying to figure out where it was coming from. I checked the stove, but the stove wasn't turned on. And at that point, I just went to my trailer because it smelled so bad.
Why wasn't
And when
he
did you
in his
see
trailer
Mr.
to
Ariola
begin with?
next?
I slept in. He showed up around, I don't know what time exactly it was, 1:30 or 2 o'clock, and he pulled into the property in his truck.
And where were you when he pulled in?
I was
don't know.
in my fifth wheel trailer. I stepped outside when I saw him pull up.
And what did you do?
I just went to greet him, and we greeted each other just outside the gate where my fifth wheel RV was parked.
Did you notice anything about his demeanor at that point?
It was definitely a little bit different than the other times I had met up with him. He was kind of short with me, and he kind of had a scowl above his eyes. He seemed to be in a bad mood, is what I thought. He just wasn't in a good mood or something.
So after you greeted him, what happened?
He went over to his trailer. I went back into my fifth wheel, and he was moving stuff from his truck to inside the trailer. He had brought a bunch of groceries and was moving stuff into the trailer.
So what did you do at that time?
So I wanted to have a conversation with him about the purchase of the property, and I was thinking things were falling through, but I really wanted to communicate with him to see if we could work a deal. And so I went over to the trailer and went on inside, and he was in the kitchen unloading groceries.
Thank you,
What
Kathy.
happened when you went inside the kitchen?
Thank you, April.
I started talking to him about the trailer and about getting someone to look at the agreement, and he was kind of standoffish more than I'd ever seen him. He's behaving differently for sure. And
I mean, he
started
was
talking about
deeply
it, and
screwed up by
started getting kind of
chemicals.
heated. So I could tell that our conversation wasn't getting much better at the time. So I wasn't sure what to do, but I was just trying to communicate.
And how long were you talking to him for?
Probably about 10 minutes, 8 minutes to 10 minutes.
And when you were speaking with him, did he appear intoxicated?
He kind of did. I didn't get very close to him. I couldn't smell anything at the time, but he definitely seemed intoxicated a little bit. I wasn't sure if he had been drinking or been smoking some weed or something.
And we've heard testimony in this trial that Mr. Ariola was on cocaine at the time of his death. Were you aware that he used cocaine?
No, he never shared that with me. He never told me that he used cocaine or tried to share it with me when we were drinking.
And so you're having this conversation and it starts to get heated. What happened next?
So he gets a pretty bad scowl above his eyes. You could tell he was getting pissed
We'll
off.
see.
And
But
I
so
was
far,
getting-
he seems
I was getting a little
pretty
anxious
solid
myself.
as far as
I just really
defendants
wanted
go.
to get the deal done and get the contract looked at by an attorney. I started calling him out. I was calling him out saying, look, are you trying to scam me on this deal?
Looks like
or
he
what's your
already
problem?"
excluded
I kind of maybe went one step too far.
any sort of
but
truthfulness
I didn't realize
testimony.
how angry this guy
So
could
there's
be,
not
or
a
how he
whole
could
lot
get
for
that way.
the
When you say that
prosecution
you
to
may
go
have
with
gone
him.
one step too far, what do you mean?
I called him a scammer, and that really blew him off the top. That really made him angry.
And after you called him a scammer, what did he do?
I said, "Are you scamming me?" And he runs across the kitchen. He was only 3 or 4 feet away from me at the time. He comes running at me. He has something in his right hand, and he comes at me. He swings at it. I block with my left hand, and he barrels into me with his left hand, kind of like a blocker in a football game. It pushed me against the countertop, and I slid off into the hallway. I was on my hands and feet.
I'm going to stop you there for a minute, slow you down.
Okay.
Well, this is a lot more
What's
interesting.
already been admitted into evidence as State's
Yeah,
Exhibit 44.
it is.
I mean, to hear the story from his perspective, I don't think it's a good legal move, but it's interesting as hell.
Do you recognize what's depicted in that photo?
I do.
And what are we looking at?
We're looking at the kitchen with the start of the hallway. You
Well,
can
again, it's
see
the only
hallway
person
going
who's
off to
still
the
alive
left
that was there.
And can you tell us where you were standing when Mr. Areola attacked you?
I was standing right there. I think that's where my feet were. My feet were.
And
I
when
don't
he
know.
knocked into you, when he attacked you,
Yeah,
Where did
he
you
sure
go?
has a right to
I
testify.
fell backward. I landed about where the sunglasses are.
I mean, we'll see on cross,
and
but
he
he's
was
not
all over
hurting.
me. But my
himself
rifle
right
was
now.
sitting right next to the wall there, right about there. And as he was on top of me, he was trying to swing with the canister or something in his hand. And I reached across with my right hand across my legs and grabbed the rifle. And then I was scooching backward down the hallway, trying to get back up to my feet.
and I'm going to stop you there for a
Okay.
minute. So when he tackles
Wow.
you or attacks you in the kitchen, I think you used the word attacked. When he attacks you,
The way
and
he's
you fall to the
describing this is
floor,
perfectly reasonable.
were you wearing sunglasses?
I
It
wasn't.
is.
Whose sunglasses are those?
They were on his hat. They were Guillermo's sunglasses.
Okay. Do you know how they got on the floor?
I think when he came over me, swinging above me, they fell off.
So he's swinging at you with a canister.
Yeah, I know there was a canister at that time. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know if it was a knife or what he had.
Did he ever make contact with you?
He never did. I kept blocking him with my left hand.
And so after you're on the floor, what happened next?
This is the problem with them
I
never
was
testing
doing a
the
crab
clothing.
walk kind of thing, trying to get my feet under me. I got back up to my feet or almost back up to my feet, and he came running down the hallway and hit me again. I fell into the very entrance of a small bathroom. I was kind of in the door jamb with my legs were in the hallway, but my upper body was in the door jamb of the bathroom. He was all over me at this point. He's swinging as hard as you could swing. I'm blocking him as much as I can. I've got the rifle by the barrel, and he's trying to grab the barrel and trying to grab the rifle out of my hand. I knew I couldn't let go of that thing for the life of me. I ended up fighting myself back to my feet. I backed up down the hallway. I was about 4 or 5 feet from him, and he's just in a rage. He just
And
starts.
Let me stop you there.
Okay.
When you are knocked down the second time, you scramble to get back up, you said?
This is freaking
Yeah.
What do
riveting.
you do then?
I get it back in the hallway, and I get back about 5 feet from him. I'm about at the very end of the hallway at this point. I finally grabbed the rifle like you should, with the handle on, with one hand on the handle and another hand on the barrel, which is kind of got a plastic
narrative's
coating around the
believable.
barrel so it doesn't burn your hand. And I said, "Stop." And he didn't stop at all. He came charging at me and knocked me into the back bedroom.
When you screamed stop and you have the rifle, what are you doing with the rifle?
I'm trying to protect myself. I'm basically thinking that if I point this at him, he's going to stop coming at me and realize how serious it was. But he didn't. He just came barreling into me. He was coming into me like a football blocker, coming with his left hand, his other hand up in the air with some object in his hand.
That makes perfect sense.
So
Given the
after
ballistics.
you yell stop and he barrels into you again, what happens?
I fall back in the back bedroom, and my legs were all the way in the bedroom, kind of by that heater where you had showed that heater before.
Let me pull it up for you.
I mean, his narrative makes a hell of a lot more sense than the prosecution's, based on what we've seen.
It does.
Show you State's Exhibit 61 again.
Honestly, maybe it wasn't a terrible idea to bring him to the stand. Which is very
where
rare.
were you? Does this photo show where you fell?
Yeah, kind of. I would say my legs were where the number 4 is, and my upper body was just outside of this photograph. I was scrambling out from underneath him. He was all over me. He was on top of me, swinging with that thing in his hand, And I was crab walking back again, trying to get my feet back under me. This time he was all over me, though. He was leaning over me and swinging violently with something in his hand.
I'm going to show you a different photo that might help us a little bit in understanding what you're describing. Permission to approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yeah, that shows a lot more for sure. That definitely show where I fell.
Do you recognize what's depicted in this photo?
I do.
Is this a fair and accurate representation of this part of the room?
It definitely shows the entrance of the bedroom.
At this point, we would move for the admission of Defendant's Exhibit R. No objection.
He'll be admitted.
Permission to publish?
You may.
So, Mr. Cummings, in this photo, what are we looking at?
We're looking at the entrance, the door entrance to the back bedroom and a propane heater.
And I don't know how we clear the yellow markings that we had previously made.
Hit your lower left hand corner on your screen. Not the, over here.
Do I just hit clear here?
Thank you. So this is the doorway to the bedroom?
It is.
And what is it in that lower corner? What is this?
That's the propane heater.
What is this metal bar?
That's where you hang the heater on.
And so as you're falling into the bedroom, tell me what's happening.
He's just all over me. He's totally in a rage. I fall backward into the back bedroom. I start scrambling and trying to get out from underneath him as best I could. I had the rifle in one hand. I had it by the handle at this point because I had picked it up and put it in my hands properly when I got out of the bathroom. And I'm scrambling right now, trying to get away from him. And he's swinging as fast, as hard as he can with his right hand. And I'm using my left hand, and I'm using my elbow and my palm of my hand with the gun in my hand, pushing off, trying to slide myself back out from underneath him. And I don't know, one of us hit that heater. I don't know if it was me or if it was him.
And when one of you hit the heater, did it come off the wall?
It was too crazy. I didn't really pay attention to that part of it, but it looks like it did.
Fair enough. I'm going to show you.
For now, we
again
do
what's
have
been
evidence
already
of a
admitted
struggle.
as State's Exhibit 46.
And the amount of prep was probably dozens of hours over the course of months.
Mr. Cummings,
It's
do
a
you see
two-year
in
long
this photo
project.
a
This has been
green
going on for 2 years.
area rug?
I do, a throw rug.
The throw rug, yes. Where was that throw rug before this fight started?
It was spread out evenly on the floor, basically where you'd be sitting on that bunk bed with your feet on the carpet. It was laid out on the floor. It wasn't underneath the tote. It was on further this side of the tote, the Rubbermaid container.
How did the rug get all pushed up like that?
I think I was on top of it. I think part of my body was on top of it. And when I was doing the crab walk, trying to get out from underneath him, I think I pushed it up.
So as you're crab walking or pushing back, what is he doing?
He's swinging at my head with that canister. He even glanced me a couple times. It was like he was trying to rub it on me or something. But I had a hold of his jacket, and I was blocking him with my left hand.
And who had the gun?
I did.
And where was the gun?
It was in my right hand, and I was using my right hand to try to crab walk away from him and trying to get my feet underneath me.
He's
and
doing a
blocking him
hell
with
of a
my left
job
hand.
telling this story.
And was
in a
Mr.
way that
Areola
makes
touching the
perfect
gun?
sense.
He was all over it. He was trying to get it out of my hand. He was pulling on it, and I was hanging on to it for dear life. I didn't want him to get that gun. I knew it would have been the end of me if he got a hold of that gun.
And so you say that you knew it would have been the end of you. What is going through your mind while you're fighting over the gun in this bedroom?
I just couldn't believe he was this crazy that he would attack me like he did. And I was definitely seriously worried about my life at this time. I knew if he got a hold of that gun that it would have been the end of me, or if he would have nailed me in the temple with that canister in his hand. I started thinking about my family and my kids, and I said to myself, you're not going to be a father much longer if you don't get serious about what's going on here, Dean. I was basically talking to myself, trying to get to the point where I can start pulling a trigger.
And so what happens when you have that thought?
I'm still trying to get up. I think I got up to just about in a squat position, and he's all over me. He's got a hold of the gun. I couldn't get it up, and he's pushing on the ground. I think he pulled the gun against my fingers. What happened is why the first couple shots went off. Once the shots went off, I got my left hand. I took it away from his right hand.
And I want to stop you, and I want to talk about those first couple shots.
Okay.
We've heard evidence and we've seen photos of some impact sites with scorch marks.
Yep.
Those 2 impact sites on the floor.
Yeah, I saw those.
Do you know how those happened?
He had a hold of the gun, pushing it down so I couldn't pick it up, and the gun went off. I thought it went off more than 2 times, but it turns out it was just 2 times where it shot the floor. I'm pretty sure the barrel was touching the floor when those 2 shots fired.
And after the gun goes off those 2 times, what happens?
I just say to myself, Dean, you got to get serious about this if you're going to be a father any longer. I grabbed the gun with my left hand. I tried picking
I can't believe
it up.
I'm saying this, but I think
Just
that they
fighting
actually
over
made a good decision
over me with
putting him on.
his hands all over that gun, trying to yank it out of my arms.
You will see cross.
And I just started pulling the trigger, and I must have been
Maybe.
just a quarter of the way up, not even that, maybe a quarter to a third of the way up, because all the bullets went through the wall at a horizontal plane. I never really did get that gun up.
Okay. So when you pulled the trigger, you're saying you're about a third of the way up?
Yeah, I think he was all over me with his right hand. I'd given up on his right hand so I could grab the rifle properly.
Mm-hmm.
And I just started pulling the trigger. And I didn't think we shot that many times, but that gun went off a lot of times.
And what happened when the gun goes off?
Once the gun went off, I had the gun went from being down low to going up higher, and he falls at my feet, just right where I was at, trying to get up on my feet.
Did Mr. Ariola say anything to you during this fight?
At the beginning, he said, "I'm going to kill you." That's the first thing he said to me when I fell down in the hallway from the kitchen.
Did you believe him?
I believed him. He was in a rage.
After the gun goes off and Mr. Ariola falls to the floor, what do?
I get up to him. I get up all the way and I walk outside, and I was choking on something. So I was coughing. I was doing a technique that you do for high mountain mountaineering, where you clear your lungs. You get anything that's in your lungs to come out. And I walked outside through the little mud room. He had a little porch there, and I walked outside, and I was kneeling over, trying to hack that stuff out of my lungs, because I could feel that my lungs were kind of seized up a bit.
Did you know why your lungs were seizing up?
I didn't realize that he had anything like mace, but I was coughing, and I looked over there, and my face felt really cold, and it was stinging a bit on my face. So I ended up looking over, and there was a water spigot over there to the back of the trailer. I went over there, started splashing water on me. It didn't seem to help much, so I actually went back inside, and I looked in to see if that guy was still moving or not. He wasn't, and I noticed a canister in his hand, and that's when I was concerned it might have been a chemical of some kind. I went into the kitchen. I got some soap in my hand, in the palm of my hand. I went back outside. I took my shirt off, and I started washing myself. On the side of my head, washed my hair, washed the side of my skin, and then I dried myself up with the towel, with the t-shirt. So like the t-shirt got all wet, and I was worried the t-shirt had some sort of chemical on it as well.
How long did it take for you to recover from the effects of the spray?
My skin was stinging quite a while, and I seemed to be able to clear out my lungs. I just kept coughing and doing that technique that you do for high mountain elevation mountaineering. And I got that out of my lungs, but it kind of burned for a while. At that point, I went over to my trailer and I grabbed a shirt. I took the shirt off. I threw it on the bed of my truck, and then I put a new shirt on. It was still chilly. It was wintertime.
And what did you do with the gun?
I put it on the front step. I took out the clip. I cleared the barrel so there wouldn't be a round in the barrel. I knew the police were going to be coming. I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't a hazardous situation for them, and that I wanted them to be able to trust me that they were safe by going into that building.
I'm going to show you what's already been admitted as
This
State's
might be
Exhibit
the
27.
best defendant testimony ever. It's
Seriously.
100% consistent with everything we've been
Is that
saying
where
this
you put
entire
your
time.
firearm?
That is, I said it right there on the step.
And did you remove the
So if they
magazine?
prepped him
I
and this
did.
was
I
the
took
narrative
out
that
the
they
clip
gave,
and I
I would
cleared the
put him on the
magazine
stand.
out of the barrel.
You almost never want to do that.
And you did that, you said
Does he have
because you
prior
wanted it to
conviction?
be a
That's a big
safe
issue.
scene?
Yeah, I wanted the police officers to be able to see it so they knew where the weapon was,
Yeah.
so they could go in and check out the scene. I was just trying to make it as easy as I could for them, and I was definitely kind of worried about what could happen next. So I wanted to make sure they didn't think I was armed.
Now let's talk about this firearm for a
This is
minute.
utterly consistent with all of the evidence.
What type of
It really
firearm is
is.
this?
It's a 5.56 Sig and Sauer.
And why did you buy it?
I bought it when
That's true.
they were supposedly going to outlaw ARs. I bought it to as an investment. I bought two of them. I bought a Colt and I bought a Sig and Sauer. I was going to sell them. In Alaska, you can sell guns on a thing called Alaska List. So I was going to just try and double my money on these weapons.
And why did you have it out at this time?
I was going to go Barbary sheep hunting. New Mexico has a Barbary sheep hunt that's year round over the counter. And there's Barbary sheep out there by the Chemizon Peaks and out there by Largo Canyon. So I was going to go hunting and see if I could find one of those Barbary sheep.
So why was the rifle out in the first place?
Maybe now
I had put a new scope
told
on
him
it,
well.
and when I mounted it, it wasn't quite right.
I
It
don't
wasn't
think he
level.
gave them anything to
So,
really
you
hit
look
him.
through it.
Yeah,
you
he
can see
doesn't
the
make any
crosshairs were off
assertions that you can.
angle. So that night I
smack
readjusted
around
the
with.
scope and made it all level, and that's why I had it there on the table and it's leaned up against the wall.
We've seen evidence that there was some electrical tape around the scope.
Uh-huh.
Why was there electrical tape?
I put lens covers on the scope, so if it rains, the scope doesn't get wet when you're hunting and or dust, and they just cover it up really good. And it was not the tightest fit, so I got some electrical tape and I stretched out the electrical tape and wrapped it around there. It's
Again,
really
Clay, that
secure
makes
stuff
perfect
once you
sense.
stretch it tight. It's kind of a technique electricians use to put over wiring and stuff like that.
Was the cap to the scope still on when you came outside after the shooting?
I didn't really notice. I was in shock. I wasn't really paying attention to any of that. I was just so worried about getting that stuff off my face and off my hair. I didn't pay attention to that.
Perfectly fair answer.
So backing up a little bit, do you know approximately what time of day it was when this attack occurred?
It was around 3 o'clock, maybe 3:30.
And you said that it took you a little bit of time to clear your lungs and the stinging to stop?
Yeah, my lungs were stinging for quite a while, and my skin was stinging for quite a while too. I washed myself really good. I washed my hands, I washed my face, I washed my hair. I put on a clean t-shirt, and it probably lingered on my body for about an hour. I noticed it was still stinging, and my lungs cleared out pretty quickly because I just coughed it out. Probably 40 minutes, and then my lungs felt normal again.
And when you started to feel better, what did you do at that point?
I went over to my truck and, I did a couple things. I put the gun back. I put it by the porch on the front porch there where they could see it. I went to my truck. Right when I got to my truck, I saw a motorcycle going down the road. So I ran over to the edge of the property by the gate, and I was trying to wave this guy down, whoever was on that motorcycle. And obviously he didn't see me. He didn't pull in.
I'm not sure you even need a reconstruction
I
expert.
thought that
He's
since it's
tying
so
everything
remote, he would
together.
see me, one person flagging their hands back and forth. And then when he didn't come see me, I went back to my truck. I got in my truck and I drove to an area that's about 4 miles away where you can get cell phone service. Once Guillermo showed me one time with his 4-wheeler, we drove up there so he could call his father. So I knew where the cell phone service worked from that trip we made.
So to be clear, was your cell phone working at the ranch?
No cell phone works at the ranch.
Which is completely consistent
When you were
with
seeking
the
cell phone service,
old guy
why?
on the motorcycle.
Because I wanted to call 911.
Everything he's saying is,
And as you're
is
driving out
consisting
there,
with the
you
evidence
get cell phone
elicited in the
service, what
prosecution's testimony.
I'm driving along. I'm looking at my phone to see if I'm getting any bars.
It is
I drove all the
creating
way up to an area
the
called
narrative
Amazon Peak. There's like an
using
interest
what we already
sign
know.
there that the BLM put up. It talks about all the volcanoes and how they were created. And as I pulled up, there was a man over there reading the sign. And I pulled up and wanted to converse with him. I wasn't sure if he was friends with Guillermo or who he was. So I started a conversation with him.
And you said you weren't sure if he was friends with Guillermo. Why were you concerned about that?
I was just concerned. I wanted somebody to be a witness, and I wanted to have somebody with me when I went back to the property. I was definitely in shock. I was kind of scared and in shock. My hands were still shaking. I was definitely nervous. I was now kind of concerned about the police showing up with guns. I figured it'd be a good idea to have somebody out there with me.
And so what did you do next?
We talked, and he said he had cell phone service, and he asked me what my phone number was and what my name was. I gave it to him, and then he walked behind the back of my truck and was talking to 911. I thought he was giving him my license plate number, but I'm not sure if he did or not. And then right about the time he was on a conversation on the phone, I had 3 bars pop up on my phone, so I called 911 as well. I wanted to tell them as much as I could. I knew they'd have a hard time finding the place, so I wanted to tell them where it was. I got 911. I called and I let them know what my name was, what my phone number was, and what had occurred, and tried to give them directions to where I was at.
After you spoke with 911, did you call anybody else?
I called my dad
Why did you call your dad?
because I was just nervous and scared. I knew when the police were going to show up, there was going to be guns out, and I didn't want to get shot. I just felt like I needed to have some people there with me because I was so scared and in shock.
So what did you do next to try to ensure your safety?
I took David down to the ranch with me. He followed me on his motorcycle. We took him down to the ranch. I wanted him to be witness of everything and to be there with me. He walked into the building. He took a look at what was going on, and he exited the building. And instead of staying there with me, he jumps on his motorcycle and took off, which was kind of nerve-wracking. I was hoping he would stay there with me. So I climbed back in my truck, and I sat in my truck for a long time. I waited around for the police. It seemed like it took about 2.5 hours before they arrived. It was daylight when the incident occurred. It was daylight when I met with David, and when he went into the trailer to look at the scene. And by the time it must have been around 6:30, 6:50 maybe, I decided I better drive back up to the property. It seemed like 2 hours or more had gone by. So I ended up driving back up to the Amazon Peak Trail so I could call 911 again or see what was going on. And I jumped in my truck. I drove out of the property. I got maybe 100 yards out of the property, and I saw 3 cop cars parked at the top of this road. It was an entrance road to the property. They were about a quarter of a mile away from the property. They had parked there, and they weren't sure what to do, I think.
So when you started to leave the ranch,
I don't know
did
that
you
I've
they were
ever
down
seen
there?
a more composed.
I thought they'd be up at
and
Amazon, or they
defense
just hadn't
witness.
arrived yet.
Are there any
It's
other
right,
roads that lead
the defendant
that go away
providing
from that ranch, or
testimony.
is that the
No,
only
it's a
road?
one-way.
So when you see the officers, what do you do?
When I see the officers, I put my truck in park. I roll down my window to see if they're yelling anything or telling me what to do. And sure enough, they were. And I turned the engine off because my truck's a diesel, so it's hard to hear anybody. And as soon as I put my head out the window, I heard them say, "Get out of the truck, put your hands up, and approach us. Walk toward us with your hands up."
And so did you follow their orders?
I did. I just walked up there with my hands above my head. I had about, I don't know, it was a good 100 yards away from them. So I walked up the road. I knew they were pointing guns at me, so it was definitely nerve-wracking. So I just made sure I kept my hands up no matter what.
And did you try to follow all of their orders?
I did follow their orders, yeah. I could hear them, and I
don't know
was
what you
definitely
impeach
concerned
him on.
about them having guns, so I followed their direction perfectly.
How were you feeling when you were walking towards the police?
I was scared. I was still in shock from the incident. My hands were still shaking. I was nerve wracked. I was devastated. I couldn't believe what had just happened and that I was involved with it.
Do you recall ever being asked by any of the officers what your name was?
I don't think they ever asked my name. I had given my name already to 911, so I figured they had it. I heard the testimony of that officer. He claims he asked me my name, but the whole time I sat in the back of the truck, he sat over there in front of his vehicle. He never really came over to converse with me. I don't remember him ever asking my name.
Okay,
So
let this
what
go.
you're talking about now when you were sitting in the back of a truck. Are you talking about your truck or a police
A
officer?
police car. They had Dodge Ram trucks with sirens and markings, the sheriff's department.
Did you ever give any of the officers the wrong date of birth?
I don't think so. I know my date of birth. That's not possible.
Did you ever attempt to conceal your identity from the police?
I didn't. I'm not sure where that came from.
Did you ever attempt to hide or destroy evidence?
No, not at all. I told them exactly where my shirt was and where my coats were. I let them know exactly why I put them there and where they were.
You may have just.
I am shocked how well this kind of tied things together.
Yeah, I'm with you. If he's gonna be this good on the stand, maybe it was a good play.
Yeah,
And he doesn't have priors to eat, and they may have the burden of proving that as an affirmative defense. I'm not sure of that to this moment.
Yeah.
Now, Mr. Cummings, I want to back up just briefly to the rifle that was found wedged between the mattress and the box springs.
Okay.
Was that your rifle?
Not at all. I didn't know that was there either.
And the evening where you fell asleep and woke up to the smell of propane, how were you feeling when you woke up?
I felt a little bit dizzy. It was kind of nauseous. I guess I was kind of nauseous in my stomach and a little bit dizzy.
And also beating up
it smelled really bad.
Investigation a little bit more.
And the spray that emitted in the bedroom. Well, actually, you know what? Do you know when the spray from that canister came out?
I don't. I didn't know he had a canister until I went back in there to get soap. That's when I saw the canister, and then I got a little more concerned because I didn't know what kind of toxic material could have been in the can. I was definitely thinking it was worse than mace because of my lungs, but I don't know. I was in shock. I was jumping to conclusions.
Maybe you thought it was bug spray or something. I mean, that could be pretty bad too.
His right hand.
Yeah.
And something was in his hand. Did you know what it was in his hand?
I didn't. I didn't know what it was, if it was a knife or what it was, back of a pistol or something. I never really saw it. He was swinging it so fast, and I was trying to get away the whole time.
Okay. And so the spray hurt your skin and your lungs. Did it affect your eyes at all?
For you, Kathy.
It didn't. When I stepped out of the trailer, I noticed a plane flying over the ranch, and I could see it perfectly. So I was happy to know that my eyes weren't affected.
Ms. Kirk, I totally disagree. I think he's coming across as extremely credible.
Mr. Cummings, why did you shoot and kill Guillermo Arreola?
I was fighting for my life. He was out of his mind at the time. He had it in for me. You could tell when somebody tells you they're going to kill you and they're pounding at you for over 3 different times where you fall down. Even pushing past when I've had the gun up in my hands, holding it properly, he still advanced on me and tackled me. I knew he was serious. I was fearing for my life the whole time.
It is a good question. They may or may not be able to get that in. Oh, here comes the cross-examination. Here's your chance, State.
I don't know what you hit him on.
Yeah.
Good morning, Mr. Cummings.
You look pretty good.
You know what? I think I want to talk first of all about your.
It would be nice if you used the microphone.
Thank you.
I looked at the video
Uh-huh.
And it looked like on those videos that you're almost going straight down.
I've done a
Please
lot of
go
big
back
fish
to the
descents.
microphone.
It's my life.
That's scary, isn't it?
It's definitely scary. There's no future in not having fear when you're in the mountains.
What kind of individuals, well, that's a bad question. I'm just trying to find out, I mean, that just, would you say that people who do that, are like, kind of like adrenaline junkies? Is that kind of people who do that?
No, it's called mountaineering.
What's that?
It's called mountaineering.
What does that mean?
Mountaineering's the way you climb a mountain and the way you
Oh,
descend.
mountaineering.
Mountaineering,
I'm sorry,
yeah.
just asked.
Yeah, there's hundreds of people that do what I do. They're sponsored by companies and they go all over the world skiing big mountains. They make a living
Objection.
at it.
Lack of microphone.
But so do you actually, so heli-skiing, you're in a helicopter and does the helicopter like take you to the top of the peak
Exactly.
and then you jump out
No, the helicopter lands and then you step out.
and then you ski all the way down?
And then you ski down the mountain and then you get picked up again by the helicopter and flies you up for another run. So it's a multiple run day of heli skiing.
Craziness.
They do it in Canada. They do it in Europe. They do it in Alaska. Alaska is the premier spot for
Well, we
helicopter
can't hear
skiing
her.
because we have such amazing big mountains at low elevation. So you're not breathing really hard because you're at low elevation, but the vertical gain is impressive. It would be like skiing off of Sandia Peak and coming all the way down to Tramway Boulevard.
Right.
And that's one heli ski run.
Wow, okay.
But the ability level, I have advanced intermediates, advanced and expert skiers. There's runs like this that are just perfectly like 20 degrees for 4 miles. You don't have to be an extreme skier to ski that. You could come up to Alaska and go skiing and have a good time.
But it is dangerous though.
Yeah, the sport of skiing is dangerous. Yeah, you can hit a tree or you can slide down a slope. Yes.
Um,
Once again,
I was just
prosecution. I don't know where the hell you're going.
marveling at how
Yeah, actually, I am.
to me it looked like it was straight.
I would like to go
Yeah.
heli skiing with him. I mean, I'd like to live through it too.
Your Honor, I didn't have a chance to interview him, so
Hold
I
on,
would
hold on,
ask.
hold on.
I'm
Approach the
gonna
bench.
go.
Approach the bench.
You can approach.
Yes, approach the bench.
What are they doing?
Wow. I did not expect anything. I did not expect anything out of today. I thought defense was gonna. I thought there was a decent chance the defense would just say we rest,
We're gonna take.
I thought maybe a reconstruction expert and then rest.
and then let's go to closing argument. But I'm
Yeah, I'll tell you.
from a YouTube perspective.
This turned out to be probably a lot more than you thought it would be.
Yeah. It was absolutely fascinating to see the story told by, like you said, the only living participant.
Right.
Now, one of the things is you take all of it with a grain of salt because there's nobody to contradict him because there was only 2 people there and one of them's dead.
Yes.
But that does not imply that he's lying.
No, it doesn't necessarily mean that he's lying. And his
It says
theory
he can
of-
lie with impunity and no one can really counter him on it. That's true, but it doesn't mean that he's lying.
But his theory of events made more sense to me than the prosecution's theory of events.
It sure did.
Well, the court finds the state does not have the right to interview the defendant.
Of course not, Your Honor.
I think they might still be.
That is prosecutorial misconduct to go and bring up a fundamental constitutional right like that in front of a jury. At this point in time, I'm moving.
And I gotta be honest, I'm not really sure where the prosecution's going with this cross so far.
Hold on. The
Well, I
other
couldn't
guy,
even
he
hear
has-
it.
He has counsel. Not only does he have the right to remain silent, he also has the right to counsel. He has counsel. So there's no right to interview the defendant. Ms. Romo.
Your Honor, that was not, clearly, it was in response to Ms. Moss objecting, and my point was that before she interrupted, I was about to say, and I was in the middle of saying, I would ask for leeway because we didn't have an opportunity to do a pretrial interview with him.
Well, you don't have that right, Ms. Romo.
Well, I know, but that's why I was asking for leeway. That's all. That's all.
That's
I'm
not
asking.
how it
There's no
works,
leeway in
lady.
that.
Okay, but you could, I understand
I'm-
that, Judge, and I respect your ruling, but for them to jump up and down and her to start laughing in front of the jury and yelling prosecutorial misconduct, that's not what I was doing.
Hold on. Ms.
The
Romo.
court knows I wouldn't do that.
Hold on, Ms. Romo.
Well, it's
She
getting
didn't laugh
spicy.
In front of the jury, she did it after I sent out the
She
jury.
was laughing.
Anyway,
I think the prosecution was crossing a line from motion in limine, and they're arguing that they should have leeway because they didn't get to depose him. But that's not how that works. I think that's what was going on, if I heard it correctly. I don't know, Mike. What did you pull from that?
Oh, that's it. She's asking for leeway in questioning the witness, and she gave the basis because I didn't get to talk to him. And the judge is like, well, you never get to talk to the defendant.
So what are you doing?
But I don't know what she was going into because I couldn't hear her damn cross because she wasn't sitting at the microphone.
Yeah, that's true too.
So I don't know what path she was going down when this all erupted.
I think that they were getting close to character evidence, suggesting that because he's an extreme skier, he should have a different character as it relates to potentially dangerous situations, which obviously would be improper.
What I think the state wants to get in is his paranoid, theories about everyone out to get him and destroy his business and all this kind of stuff. And they probably had motions on that, like you said.
Yeah, and I think that because that was the problem, is that they screwed up clearly this morning because, and I will give it this way, I think the judge was fair because I do think the prosecution kicked some doors in, but he said, look, we'll deal with that later. But tie always has to go to the defendant when it comes to legal rulings. That's just my genuine belief. So for her to start getting close to that line is really not appropriate.
Well, if I'm the prosecution in this case, I want to argue that this guy's paranoid and his belief that his life was in danger was not rational. That's the element of his self-defense claim that I'm going to attack. Now, I don't do this for a living, but I'm just saying in my gut, off the top of my head, that's the first thing I think.
Yes. However, when I was doing it solo the other day, or with Cole, I asked Cole, take his story the way that he described it today. If you were in his shoes, do you think that you were at risk of grave risk of bodily harm or death? As an objective person. And I would have a hard time saying no. Even if subjectively he's a lunatic.
Yes. Certainly given his testimony today.
So that's kind of the end of the analysis for me. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I think you've got subjective. I think you've got objective.
This one's hard here. It gets down to his credibility, which I think, based on his performance and his testimony relative to the facts that we do know, I think is pretty good, actually.
I think he did a fantastic job.
So there you go.
We had the DNA expert who didn't test the barrel. He said he grabbed the barrel. Everything that he said was consistent.
Yeah, even little things like when the prosecution showed it, like the gun was sitting out on the steps. His reaction to that, like if you think I just shot somebody for no good reason, first of all, you run. He's calling them.
Right.
Then he leaves the gun out and he says, I took the magazine out of it and everything and cleared it so that it wasn't a danger to the officers because I knew they would come and investigate and grab the gun.
Right. And on top of that, I mean, everything in terms of, when they tried to do the tampering with evidence stuff because he changed his shirt and tried to wash himself off. If I were maced, I would want to do the same thing too.
Absolutely.
Like, that's perfectly consistent with everything that we understand. Even the electrical tape on the gun. On the
Well, the other
scope.
thing is what would you, if you're washing this stuff off, it's like, okay, I'm trying to wipe the DNA. He says, I had the gun. I shot him.
Right.
You don't need that to connect the gun. I left it out there for you.
Right. And if they had tested
the prints is not spoliation of evidence or something like that. It's just he was washing himself for that purpose, to get rid of the chemical stuff.
Exactly. No, I think that everything that he said makes perfect sense if I were in his shoes, which again, I'm not trying to make a golden rule argument, but I think everything that he said made perfect sense. And Tammy Reed, I don't do specific personal questions. Sorry, I just don't.
Okay, state said in front of the jury, I'm asking because I never got an opportunity to interview him. That is not something they should say in front of the jury, in my view.
No, probably not. That
State
should
motion
be a
for
sidebar.
mistrial. I think it's a bad idea to motion for a mistrial because you're winning this trial.
Yeah. I mean, but it's definitely an appealable question because that's not appropriate.
I would rather get the acquittal than the mistrial at this point, and that's a judgment call. But from what I've observed, I would not make a motion for mistrial because I think I'm winning if I'm the defense here.
Yeah, but it's still a very good point that Greta's making.
Make the motion
that is an appealable issue.
It'll probably be denied, and now you've preserved the issue for appeal.
Right.
In the unlikely event that you lose. Also, if a mistrial is actually granted, given how horribly this case went, I don't think the state tries it again.
No.
If you get a mistrial here, it's probably effectively the same as an acquittal because the state has been completely embarrassed by this trial. In my view,
I'm sort of wondering: do you move for a mistrial or do you move for an instruction?
Well, I mean,
just from a tactical perspective,
I don't know. I don't do criminal.
Well, you used to.
Nah.
You certainly have done more criminal than I ever have.
I literally was prosecuting people for stealing ginseng plants in the middle of nowhere, Illinois. I'm not making this up. I've talked about it before, crop theft. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And then I saw they'd like value it, and I'm like, oh, that is expensive. Yeah, I mean, it is.
Well, you found something that I know literally nothing about, which is pretty rare. But yeah, I don't know because
what was GN biggin?
I'm trying to think. Like, do you move for the mistrial or do you move for the instruction? I would say instruction, but I don't know. Because it was not absolutely inappropriate for them to bring that up in front of the jury.
Well, the other thing is too is people think that like you're mid-trial, you've got your witness prep, you're freaking out because you've got your defendant on the stand. Okay, you're worried about 54 things. You've got an expert coming up on a reconstruction that you plan on having testify consistently with what your client just testified to. You got a million things going through your head. You weren't expecting the prosecution to do that.
No.
Everyone's like, we haven't like prepared a brief on every possible occurrence in a trial, and you just so you might just blurt motion for mistrial because it's the only thing that comes into your brain at the moment.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's not an irrational thought, so you just roll with it.
Teresa, I genuinely don't know. And, maybe Bronca said that. I didn't see him say it. But I don't think that they would put him up. I mean, maybe they prepped him to see how he would come off as a witness. And they were like, all right, let's pull the trigger on this. But I don't know.
Okay. Anything before we continue?
Your Honor, in light of the defense counsel's comments, I would ask for a limiting instruction, or not a limiting instruction, but instruction to the judge to remind, from the judge to the jury, to remind that the jury has, that the state has the burden of proof and the defense has no obligation, blah, blah, blah.
So there you
I'm
go.
not sure which comment I made that
They now
is,
ask for both.
offensive to
No,
Ms.
not-
Rubio. However, I
what-
objected to a ridiculous, inappropriate, unconstitutional question. I'm doing my job.
I
I'm
understand.
following the law.
I understand.
This is the
that, Your Honor, and
prosecution
that's why I'm
asking for
trying to
limiting
protect the
instruction.
client's rights
Oh,
to ask
What
the
the
judge
hell?
to remind the jury that the state has always has the burden of proof and the defendant has no obligation. And the comment, it wasn't a comment, I was referring to your motion for a mistrial. That's all I was doing.
We maybe see a couple of things.
this is wild.
This is
First,
the prosecution
with
asking
regard
for
to the
limiting
issue
instruction,
of
reminding the
Ms.
jury
Moss saying
because
that
they
the
screwed up.
prosecutorial misconduct, that was done outside the presence of the jury. The jury had already left. Okay. Secondly, if I give a curative instruction, it's also going to include the following, that the defendant has the right to remain silent and the state has no right to interview a defendant for two reasons. One, he has the right to remain silent. Secondly, because he has counsel. If I give an instruction, or we can just leave it.
I like this
I would
judge.
just leave it at this
Yep.
point.
We'll just leave it. All right. Bring in the jury, Loretta.
He offered it. Defense said, let it go.
Fair enough. I mean, maybe you just don't want to draw attention to it.
Yep.
I like this judge, though.
Again, people think we just know off the top of our heads. You could sit around and write a law review article and think about that for 18 hours. But you don't have that. You've got like a minute in court and you just shoot from the hip. That's all you can do.
But I like that the prosecution kind of recognized that what they said was not necessarily, and what the defense said was not, that whole colloquy in front of the jury was not necessarily appropriate, and they tried to offer a curative measure.
Yep.
That's good. That's the system.
It was definitely a concession.
Yeah.
Let me see this.
But I think that rattled the hell out of the prosecution.
Yeah.
So that's going to totally, I mean, maybe not derail.
I'm wondering if the prosecution was
Mr. Cummings, before the break,
possession
let's just move on a little. You know, I think we've heard enough about your career. Does that require quite a bit of athleticism?
It requires a lot of technique and athleticism.
Would you consider yourself an athlete, a pretty good athlete?
I'm a world-class skier. I've made my living as one of the top skiers in the world.
You mentioned several times in your direct about your 3 beautiful children. When's the last time you saw your children?
Objection.
Your Honor,
That's an appropriate objection. The defense, I predict the defense wins this one.
Oh, it's getting chippy too. They have had enough of each other.
Yeah. But what are your thoughts? I mean, I think asking about his kids, his character as a father is inappropriate.
Yeah.
I would grant that objection.
That's where I'm leaning. Oh, thank you, Libby.
The point is, his character as a father has absolutely no relevance whatsoever to whether he shot a guy. It is utterly irrelevant and blatantly prejudicial, particularly if he's divorced and hasn't seen his kids for a while. It's just a character assassination attempt. Oh, look at the prosecutor coming back looking defeated. Yeah, but Cole, it has nothing to do with this case. Oh, she's going to try again. Here we go. Whether the kids have a protective order against him or not is utterly irrelevant to whether he shot the guy that day. It is purely 403, prejudicial more than probative. I don't know what went on over the weekend, but these people hate each other today.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm assuming that's a yes. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Somebody asked what 403 is. Federal Rules of Civil Procedure. If a piece of evidence is more prejudicial than it is probative, then it's generally excluded. It's like the catch-all in the Rules of Civil Procedure, and most states have a similar kind of rule.
Absolutely.
I think all of
I
them
don't.
have a similar
I
rule.
don't see it where it's very probative at all, and it's highly prejudicial.
Absolutely.
It's a loser.
I don't see what the argument possibly could be that talking about his relationship with his kids is relevant to this case.
Yeah, you didn't say the cat jumped on his wiener, did you?
I genuinely wonder what they're fighting over right now, because it does not look like the prosecution's winning.
See, that sort of insight is exclusive to Law Talk with Mike right there. No other source you're going to get the cat jumped on his wiener argument.
KWH, even if it has anything to do with paranoia, it literally it's extremely prejudicial and has no probative value as to what was in his mind at the time that he shot the defendant. It's not relevant. It's never coming in. It should not come in. Mike Big, I would love to argue a case in front of schools.
Yeah. He's a nerd like that.
That was one of my favorite courses, was during legal writing. We got to brief, and they set up a panel of professors that were basically acting as the Supreme Court. That was a lot of fun.
Meh. Sure. Why not? It'd be an opportunity, but it's not something I live for now. I mean, like, I'd love to give the argument, but I want a clerk to do all the work and the brief and get it.
Oh, I would not want to write the brief.
I'll go in and do the oral argument. Fine.
If this gets mistrialed, I don't see them bringing again. So there's no benefit for the prosecution to do that.
It's been pure blue the whole time. This whole trial. Nah, she wore red one day.
I think the judge is getting fed up with the
You
prosecution.
talked about a conversation that you allegedly had with Mr. Guillermo Ariola about how he struck someone's car with a hammer.
Yeah,
Weren't you laughing during that conversation?
I didn't find it funny.
But you were laughing with him.
No, I was not.
Was he laughing?
So the objection was sustained because
He
she moved
wasn't
on.
laughing. He was serious
she
about
moved
what he
on.
was talking about. He showed
Okay.
us. He showed
Thank
us.
you. No, you've answered the question. Thank you.
But even this line of questioning assumes facts not in evidence. So you screwed up again.
You can do it on redirect.
Do you know if Mr. Ariola had a diesel truck?
I'm not sure if it was gas or diesel.
But he didn't surprise you when he came out. I mean,
yeah, I didn't expect him to show up. He hadn't showed up for a lot of weekends that I had stayed out there.
okay, but he didn't come in to startle you, did he?
Yeah, I was surprised. I didn't expect him to show up.
Okay, but he didn't startle you, did he? Yes or no? Did he startle
He
you?
did startle me.
Where
I
are
knew
you
I had
going
stuff
with
in the house that I needed to get out of there. So I was startled because I didn't want to have my rifle in the house when he showed up. I didn't mean to do that.
Mm-hmm. And this incident about you supposedly had with him when you first met Mr. Ariola, that he was drunk and falling off his horse.
I never said falling off his horse.
Almost falling?
I didn't say that either.
Oh, okay, well, that's what I
Oh,
heard.
he's good.
He was running alongside his horse. His horse was taking him for a little bit of a ride. He just couldn't get back up on the horse because he was intoxicated.
Okay.
This is what happens when
And
you
that
actually
obviously
prep a
didn't stop you
witness.
from hanging out with him or trying to buy land from him, correct?
I still wanted
Correct?
the land. I
Yes or
still
no?
wanted the land.
Sir, could you please listen to my question
I did.
and answer yes or no, unless I ask for an explanation, all right?
Ooh. She's
You
not
understand?
coming
I
off well
understand.
at all.
But you do admit that you and Mr. Ariola got along great, right?
We did. We got along just
You
fine.
drank together, yes?
Yes.
He is polite
I've-
and composed, and she is coming across as an absolute bitch.
Yeah, he was giving a
And
responsive
I would
answer.
ask the court to instruct the witness to answer my question appropriately and not be non-responsive, as I just instructed him.
He wasn't.
It was responsive.
Okay.
Continue.
Lady, he was
And
answering
Mr.
your
Cummings,
question.
To be fair, you will have an opportunity if you need to explain something when your attorney redirects you, okay?
Okay.
All right.
Yeah,
So
but you
you
can't.
got along great with him in the beginning, isn't that true?
I had a
Yes or
yes.
no?
We got along just fine.
Okay.
Say yes or no in the question. Otherwise, he's allowed to
You
answer.
drank beer together, yes?
No.
You drank whiskey together,
We
yes?
drank whiskey together.
You ate steaks with him at his house, yes?
Not with him.
She's angry because she
You
got denied by
never
the judge
really
twice in a
stayed
row.
in that trailer, did you?
I stayed in the trailer every time I went there. Yes, I did.
Do you recall when you voluntarily talked to a reporter?
Yeah, this one's going to be
David
another.
Williams,
Okay,
do you
so
remember
here's the
talking
big
to
thing.
Mr. Williams?
I do.
Here's the problem.
Do you remember telling Mr. Williams Do you remember telling Mr. Williams that you never stayed there?
I never told him that.
You didn't? Okay. Your Honor, I would like to play a portion of an interview. It's been redacted to play only that portion?
I'm gonna object.
Okay, that tells me there's been lots of motions on this, and they can't be surprised.
He already said that he stayed there a couple nights.
We just,
No, the problem is that the way that she's coming at him makes him more relatable.
Say that he stayed there. So it's not proper impeachment.
It's not, because what she's trying to impeach him, what he didn't say. is not true.
And like I said, he's staying polite
Go to bench.
and calm and composed. All it's doing is making him seem more credible when you come at him that hard over stuff that I don't think anyone cares about.
Yep. It's not central.
Continue.
I think she's just ticked off because she keeps losing her emotions and can't control her own
do you
emotions.
remember telling that same reporter? Now, you just testified that you saw, when you stayed there one night, you smelled propane.
I did smell propane, yes.
Didn't you also tell the reporter that it was all neuro?
I was dizzy from it a little bit, I think.
But you told the reporter that it was all neuro, correct?
I'm not sure.
Do you want to hear the jail call?
I don't think I need to.
Hold on, counsel. Approach the bench.
I love it. No, I don't want to hear it.
That is a well-prepped witness.
Fantastic. I have no interest in hearing it. None.
Well, think about it, because you do a lot of like the pretrial stuff. It's like, do you need to hear the charges read? It's like, no, I'm good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Then he also stuck it to her. He's like, well, I was dizzy from it. Like he just like made it worse. Oh,
Now I understand why they put him on the stand.
I do too. No
he's
priors,
interesting.
nothing they can get in. This was all motioned around. I take it back. All right. Sorry, defense team.
Yeah, you guys actually made the right call.
Well, I
So
had
far.
seen stuff that the jury isn't supposed to see, where he was crazy and he's full of conspiracy theories, and he may be. But I'm assuming this guy is going to make a horrible witness.
That was my
And-
assumption, but it kind of dispels, and maybe all of that was or is true, but the fact that he's holding himself together so well is destroying that narrative.
He's coming across as completely reasonable. Completely.
Ladies and gentlemen, I need for you to totally disregard the last question from the prosecutor that was asked by the prosecutor, and that shall not enter in any way in any type of deliberation. Ms. Romo, you may continue.
He just
you
had them
remember having
disregard
a
that question.
conversation
She's
with the reporter.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember having a conversation with a reporter.
And do you
Counsel,
rem-
approach the bench again.
oh, this prosecution can't go anywhere without being destroyed. She's gonna have a stroke. Pink candy. That was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. I told you I didn't know where they were going to go to try and impeach him, but they've got nothing.
Ms. Romo.
were you aware, or were you made aware at some point that that conversation was being recorded?
I wasn't aware of it.
Were you made aware of that prior to your testimony here today?
That my conversation was recorded?
Well, just disregard that last question. But you do recall the conversation, correct?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
been a while. It's been 2.5 years, but yeah, I do recall it.
Do you remember telling the reporter that you couldn't even recall the night?
No, I don't remember that.
Do you want to hear it? No.
And in the call to the reporter, it sounds like you're saying that Mr. Adiola arrived and this altercation began right away.
I'm not aware of that. I don't think I would have said that.
Oh my God, she's having a freaking meltdown in her own head.
Oh yeah.
He's giving you nothing, lady.
Of that conversation, it might help refresh your memory.
No, I don't know.
I feel for her.
Your Honor, the proper way to refresh his memory is to play this outside of the presence of the jury and then let them see.
You know, if you wanted to bring in this evidence, it might have been good to do that during your case in chief.
I realize that.
Mm-hmm.
No,
That might have actually been useful.
To save time.
I'm not interested in rushing this.
Okay, let's play outside of presence of the jury, okay? We'll take another, like a 5-10 minute break. All right, we'll call you back in.
Saved by the bell.
What a disaster.
That's a disaster. I feel bad for her because it's going down in flames. She can't get stuff in. I've been there. I'd like to say I'm a tough guy. I've had a witness just either surprise me or just not go the way I wanted to. Good objections from opposing counsel. It sucks. It's a bad feeling.
But here's the thing, like, so for instance, why wouldn't it make sense in your case in chief, if you wanted to bring these jail conversations in, you can have that authenticated by literally anybody from the jail and bring them in.
I think they could have objected to it if they brought it in the case in chief, and now they can say that they've opened the door by putting him on the stand.
No, the reason I'm asking is, if you don't play
I'm not sure, but that might be the thought process. That's just the first thought off the top of my head.
Well, what would be the objection in the case in chief? Because it would be a statement against interest.
Or I can show him the transcript and see if that helps refresh his memory before we play.
What I asked Ms. Romo is whether or not the transcript was complete, and she told me she didn't know. So if the transcript isn't complete, she shouldn't use the transcript.
It was provided by the reporter, Your Honor. That's all I know.
If it's what I've seen, it's a very incomplete. It's not a transcript, it's more just notes.
So just play the audio.
All right, we'll just play the whole audio then.
Mr. Cummings, pay attention because there's going to be actually questions on it.
Okay.
The usual thing that you're impeaching with is a transcript of a prior deposition or court proceeding, and you're under oath. This is a little weird.
Well, I mean, you can get the audio in as like a business record argument or statement against, interest because he is the defendant. So
yeah, but you can't have your usual fun. You swore to tell the truth and all this kind of nonsense that they usually do to set it up.
So this guy, I find this little ranch, and he's willing to do a pretty good deal. And I was looking at like 5 properties. Okay. And so I brought the thing out and I left it there for maybe 2 weeks, but I never stayed there except for I stayed there a couple nights. Here's what happened. I knew it was bogus, and I was like, fuck this, I'm gonna go get my trailer. So I went there, I stayed the night, and in the middle of the night, I was like gassed. The whole place smelled like propane and garlic, and I was all neuro. And then the next day, at around 2 o'clock, he showed up, and he pulled up with his truck, and he's looking at me like, hey, man, how are you? And I'm like, I couldn't even recall the night. I'm like, I'm fine, boy. And he goes over to his trailer, and I start packing my shit up. I'm like, I'm just getting the fuck out of here. This street shit. And I went over, I drove my truck over there to get my shit out of the trailer, and he's at the kid in the kitchen, and I'm like, dude, what's up with you?
Is law and crime censoring this part?
Well, the jury heard it now.
I fall into
I don't remember them entering it as
counter, I fall down into the hallway, and I was there's sheep out there, there's Barbary sheep. So I was thinking about trying to go and hunt some of these Barbary. So a rifle, I just put a scope and adjusted the scope, and it's leaning against the wall next to the table by the kitchen, like the exit of the kitchen. I grab it with my right hand as I'm getting up, and then he hits me again. I fall into the bathroom, and he's fucking screaming.
This is consistent with what he said.
And
this is his house, or are you in the mobile home?
yeah. I
This
just
is the
started pulling
house.
the trigger.
Okay.
I just started pulling the trigger. I don't even know if I shot him. I shot the floor like 5 or 6 times, and all of a sudden he just fell face first.
Everything that was in that audio is
I drove in the
consistent
water
with the
fountain,
story.
and off, but it like evaporated so fast it didn't even matter. Whatever it was it evaporated so much it felt like it was super cold, you know.
Right.
And then I'm just, shit, I'm involved with big time shit here. Holy shit, what do I do, you know? And I didn't have cell service, so I drove 3 miles up the road, and this is crazy. The only person, I get up there and my phone's not getting a signal, and there's this guy named Walwood, the guy from Breaking Bad, the doctor dude. And he's like, can I help you? I'm like, and I can just see his eyes, he was creepy, and I'm like, maybe, do you have a cell service? He's like, yep, and I'm medically trained. Well, did you make a call? Are you willing to come down and be a witness of what happened down here?
All of this is consistent with his story.
Absolutely. It sounds just like the testimony he just gave.
And this was like 2 years ago while he was still in jail. That makes him more credible in my mind.
You didn't mention that you were in the fifth wheel at first, before all this happened.
Why would the prosecution want to bring this up? How does this help them?
So we're trying to impeach him with that recording, and that recording absolutely doesn't support what the prosecutor is asking.
Then he can answer and she can redirect on it. Judge?
I'll allow that question. Are you ready then?
Yes, ready.
Loretta, bring you the drink.
I guess they're bringing the jury back out. But oh my God, like that jail call, how does that help the prosecution in any way whatsoever? Because everything was almost like word for word consistent with his recollection.
Yep. The part where he's paranoid and he thinks that that everybody's out to get him, that's what you want in. They may not have been able to get it in, but that's what you want in. You want to attack his state of mind. But none of this helps. None of this helps them at all.
But here's the issue is I don't think that you can get in the state of mind evidence. I don't know how you do it.
Right. But I'm saying, from what I know about that interview, that's what you want. You may or may not be able to get it in.
Right.
But these stray bits that are consistent with the testimony he just gave, literally 5 minutes ago, is not helping you get him convicted.
It does precisely the opposite of what you're trying to use this evidence for.
It sure does.
Jerome, we may continue.
So, Mr. Cummings, you testified that you weren't sure what was in Mr. Audiolo's hand.
That's correct.
Now, I'm confused. Was he striking you or was he not striking you?
He was trying to.
But he never struck you.
I blocked him.
Okay. Are you confused about whether you were sprayed or not?
I'm not confused.
Okay. And were you sprayed?
Yes,
And you washed your face and hands?
I did.
And when you washed your face and hands, did it make it feel better?
It did not. I had to go get some soap, and the soap made it feel better.
Okay. But you never told anybody you were sprayed with mace, did you?
Yeah, I did. I told Tomlinson.
You told David McCullough you were sprayed with poison.
I don't recall that.
Did you hear him testify?
I did.
You didn't know Mr. McCullough before this incident, did you?
I didn't.
Did you ever have any fights or disagreements with Mr. McCullough?
No, not at all.
You also told the deputies on scene that it was some kind of neurological agent. Do you recall that?
I believe I referred to it as chemical.
Chemical and neurological. Do you recall that?
I don't recall that.
You said you had the AR in the kitchen. Why?
Because I had worked on the scope. I adjusted the scope that night before I went to bed. I was going to go sight it in the next day. After you work on the scope, you got to sight the rifle in.
But you were going to shoot archery shoot with this?
Yeah, I was.
With armor piercing rounds?
I had other rounds too. I had both kinds.
When you put that rifle up against the porch, there was still a round chamber, was there not?
I don't think there was. I thought I cleared it.
Was there a round already chambered when Mr. Adiola got there?
No, I pulled it back when I got away from him in the bathroom.
So Mr. Adiola arrived around 2 p.m., right?
About that time, 2:30, 2 o'clock-ish.
And you said the fight ended around 3 or 3:30, is that correct?
Yeah.
So what was happening between 2 and 3 or 3:30?
He was unloading his truck, and I just was at my fifth wheel RV. I was just hanging out at my camper, and then he was in the house doing some stuff.
Why are you hanging out in your fifth wheel? I thought you were staying at the house.
Because I was in my trailer because I was giving him space to have his own place.
Where is this going?
Can you think of any reason why Mr. Adiola would just...
Absolutely nowhere.
I figured he just had a bad temper.
You've never seen that bad temper before, though, had you?
I heard it. He talked about his neighbors. He definitely told me some stuff about his neighbors where he had what was definitely using.
There's no question for you, sir.
Okay.
Destination, not guilty.
Request permission and show me how you were holding the gun and what Mr. Adiola was doing. I'll be Mr. Adiola when you were able to chamber around using this weapon.
Okay.
I still think it'd be hilarious if there was a negligent discharge and it shot somebody upstairs doing a landlord-tenant argument.
Right how the struggle started?
This is literally just an excuse for him to touch the weapon.
Yep. Which is a good trick. If you've got the jury otherwise convinced that he did it, but not here.
You weren't down like that when the argument started, were you? I'm talking about the very beginning. He said, get that. Okay? And he knocked you down now. Well, not me down, but pretend like you're going to get in the house. Okay?
This is bizarre. I've never seen anything like this. Are they going to dance?
This is the problem that I have with them, is they're doing the lawyery things, but they don't have a narrative. They're not building a story. It's not consistent. He did a much better job on direct explaining what happened that afternoon. I don't have any more questions about what occurred.
He's reenacting it. uncross, and doing a good job.
And all this time, he's coming at you.
Yeah,
He's coming at you like this.
whole time I'm walking in.
Yeah, yeah. And when did you
So then
change
he
it around?
grabbed the gun.
How did you change it around?
I didn't do that yet.
Wow.
So he grabbed the gun. So I
Where did you grab it?
Is the prosecution not literally doing what the defense might have?
Swinging, he grabbed his other hand.
With his other hand.
And he grabbed his hand.
His left hand? Oh, and what's he doing with this hand?
Yeah, I wouldn't call the reconstruction guy. We just had it.
Did you fill the canister?
I finally got back from
Hey,
him
excuse me, did you fill the canister?
a couple times.
Was it heavy?
I don't know. I never picked it up.
Or she blocked it with your hand?
This is so strange. I've never seen anything like this.
I haven't either. I've never seen this interactive interpretive dance with the witness in court.
He's got it at the bathroom entrance. I pulled this
They're
back.
still coming at you?
I think this is just bolstering his credibility too.
I'm like this. I said, stop. He's staring into me, right? Not in the back hallway to the bedroom.
This is so strange.
Hold on, Mr. Cummings. Double check that firearm. Make sure nothing in there.
They're having the deputy make sure that the weapon is safe.
Oh, good Lord. We haven't done that before then?
It's on the floor.
What is this?
Okay, all right. Okay.
What is this?
Maybe I should check that. Oh my God.
And just for safety purposes, it seems like it was more prudent to not have the firearm being pointed around.
This is the strangest thing I've ever seen.
I agree with that. Do we have a stick or something they could use?
Well, at least somebody is a firearm safety
What is that?
trained person.
So he is about from here to here?
There's the bathroom entrance is out there. I'm right here before the entrance back there.
Are you?
Come a little bit closer.
How far is
Right
the,
about there.
how far is the bathroom?
This is so strange.
Uh-huh. And where are you standing?
I'm right here, back side, the door goes to the outside, and the door to the entrance back there.
Before
Well,
you
that's
go to the
my
outside.
call. I was standing right before the doorway.
Mhm. And he sees you chamber around.
You can see there.
Okay. So you chamber around and then he's coming towards you? With a
Yep,
canister?
and he slams into me, knocks me in the back bedroom. I'm on the ground now, in the back bedroom, I'm laying this way, he's coming through the doorway.
If they had a prop weapon, why did they give him the real one?
Swinging at me with the canister,
Mhm.
and I'm like this, gun, he's got a hold of the gun by the scope at this point.
Like a stroke.
Yep, that's right.
And he testified earlier that he was all over it.
Absolutely.
He was all over it.
He was all over.
This is wild.
Trying to get it.
Okay, all over it. But, here, the right.
I don't mean all over it, I mean, he's all over, giving me 100% aggression towards me.
Okay.
I'm down on the ground. He's got a hold of the gun by the scope. I think he pulled the gun against the trigger. Boom, boom, 2 shots went off. I get up to here, and the rest of the shots were fired from about that level.
Well,
And it's hard to recall it all too.
sure. Mr. Guillermo was still, Mr. Idaho was still coming at
He
you?
was swinging at me like a believe.
Yeah, like this?
Yep.
When you shooting, when you shoot.
He's over me.
Yeah?
Exactly.
He's leaning over you, huh?
He was.
Never on his hands and knees?
I gotta be honest, I kind of love that the defense is letting them go back and forth like this.
Yeah, because it's
Making her
going
look
on.
like an asshole. I mean, you could object to all of this in a heartbeat, but I would let them keep going.
What happened to you?
He fell right at my feet.
Mm-hmm. And then?
And then I walked out of the room, went outside and coughed out what was in my lungs.
So, according to your testimony, when you're down, he's moving over, you trying to get the weapon, that's when those 2 shots went off.
Yep.
And you fell right there.
No, I didn't say he fell right when the shots went off into the floor.
What?
I did not say he fell on me when the first 2 shots went off.
I didn't say he
Those
fell
shots
on
went into the floor. They didn't go into him.
That's not what I said. Maybe my
Yeah, I actually discussed it with him on his stream.
He's trying to get the weapon.
Mm-hmm.
He's leaning over you, correct?
Yep.
And you shoot 2 times.
Get me an
Exactly.
invite.
Yeah, shot in the floor. I didn't shoot. I think he pulled against the trigger. I don't remember pulling the trigger at first.
Okay. And then he fell.
Yep. No, he didn't fall. I got up a little ways in more of a crab walk position, and I started pulling the trigger. That's why all those shots went through the wall.
So you were crab walking backwards. And he's not leaning over you anymore.
I'm trying to get away from him.
But he's not leaning over you
Oh,
anymore.
yeah, he was.
How could he be leaning over you if you're crab walking backwards?
He was definitely trying to hit me in the head with that canister.
Was he leaning over you? Was he just following you like this when you were crab walking backwards?
He was so aggressive, you couldn't believe it.
I didn't even ask my question.
Oh my God.
Is he following you?
Yeah, he is following me. He's trying to strike me in the head with his hand, his right hand. Yep. Yep. He's still swinging, yes.
She's trying to rattle him. He's
I had
actually
his
being
arm
super
by his
chill
coat
given
for a
what
long
she's
time,
throwing at
and I was
him.
blocking everything he was throwing at me. He was using his right hand. I was blocking him with my left hand.
So you're crab walking backwards and he hasn't been shot yet?
He's advancing on me, yes.
What?
He was advancing on me. He was following me on crab walk. There was no room in that. There was no space in that room. That room was tight. I crab walked a little bit backward. And I ran out of space, and he was on top of me trying to hit me the whole time. So then the gun went off. I think I got up to a little bit, maybe up to my knees. I started pulling the trigger, and all of a sudden he fell up. I might have been about like this. When he finally fell down, he fell right at my feet. I don't recall. I was definitely doing too many things at one time. He was leaning over me, trying to hit me in the head, yes.
This
I
is
think the photo
wild.
depicts it perfectly. It shows where he ended up.
There's no question before you, sir.
Okay.
There's quite a bit of blood, was there not?
Not at first.
Not at first.
Yeah, when I exited the room, I didn't see any blood on the ground.
You didn't see any blood on the ground. I'm talking about when he was shot. When he was first shot, you said he fell face down.
That's right.
But how could he fall face down if you were still right in front of him? You can crab walk him.
He landed right at my feet.
Probably her mic, so she's going to walk around like this.
Yes.
And he had been shot in the head, in the temple, and the chest.
I couldn't tell at the time. I didn't look.
But there was no blood.
I left the room as quick as he hit the ground. I was
But when
definitely,
he was shot, you were right next to him.
I was right in front of him.
You were right in front of him.
Hmm.
How is it that you didn't get any blood on you?
I don't know.
Did you get blood on you? Your face, your hands?
No, I didn't have any blood on me.
I'm going to object to the editorial comments by the prosecutor.
Okay, let's move on.
It's a pretty bloody scene.
When I came back in to get soap, I looked in there was blood.
You didn't get any on you or your hands or your clothes, nothing. Right?
Not that I know of.
Well, you would know, wouldn't you?
The judge just said move on. So
I
once
didn't,
again,
I
she's
took my
violating a
clothes off.
motion of
So they
limine.
were on the back of my truck, but I don't think any blood was on me.
Is this the heater that you say was knocked down during struggle?
I believe so.
That heater was not plugged in. Was it?
I don't know. I never used it.
You never used it. It was not plugged in, was it?
I don't know.
How do you explain if it got knocked over in the struggle? How do you explain that this? How do you explain that it landed right there, straight up, instead of falling over?
I don't know. It was.
Judge, that his face, like the evidence shows in the photo. It's on its side. It's not straight up.
I'll allow that question.
Can you rephrase your question, please?
How do you
Yeah, guys, when it comes to the blood stuff, one of the shots was straight through the heart. So it makes perfect sense that it pooled under him just based on gravity, not that it was spurting everywhere. If the heart's not pumping, you're not going to get blood spurts.
It was pretty small.
The bunk bed's on one side, the wall, there's a mirror against the wall,
I don't.
there's a picture on the wall, there are clothes hanging on the wall,
The clothes were behind the bed.
the clothes were behind the bed. No, not all the clothes, were they? Sure.
Yeah, there's the bed. There's the Rubbermaid, and there's the clothes.
The mirror wasn't, was it?
I don't recall a mirror.
And how do you explain that nothing got
No one's objecting.
knocked over in the kitchen when you fell against the cabinet?
Yeah, all this struggle occurred in the hallway. There's nothing in the hallway. There's no
I never walk
cabinets,
into
there's
the
nothing.
well without permission, but
shelves.
if they let it go there, so be it.
I kind of slid off of it. It hit me in the top of my buttocks.
How do they do it in Chicago? Do you have to ask permission to walk into the well?
What, to go to the witness?
I fell backwards.
walk into the
Wasn't
well
too
at all.
hard. I caught
You need
myself
counsel
with my
table.
arms.
Which arm? The arm that you were holding?
I don't know which arms.
I
don't
I
know.
only
I
asked
didn't
before
have the
you
AR at first.
needing to
I fell
witness
without
something.
holding onto the gun.
Yeah. In New York, depending on the judge, a lot of times I won't leave counsel table without permission. Florida's a little bit looser.
So if you're
Oh,
an
I know.
avid hunter, I assume that you know about gun safety.
I roam around the well
I
at
do.
will.
Are you disputing the testimony of Carlos Herrera that there was a round chamber when you found that weapon?
And I could have sworn I cleared it.
Crocker's girl, I agree with you.
Okay, let me get back to this struggle a little bit in the timeline.
I really wish she would use the microphone. It's driving me a little nuts.
Not very long, just like a minute or two. It happened very quick.
And you said about 3 or 3:30, you think?
That'd be my guesstimation. I didn't have a watch on.
Yeah, that all happened pretty quickly, right?
Yep.
And then right afterwards, this is someone you had been friendly with, right?
Yeah, as best I could.
Did you go and check to see if he was still alive?
I did. When I came in to get the soap, I checked.
How did you check?
I looked in the room and there was a big pool of blood. He wasn't moving. His chest wasn't rising. I'm medically trained, so it was obvious he wasn't breathing.
Right after you shot him.
Shot through the heart.
I did. I looked in there.
Right after you shot him.
Oh, not at all. I left the room as quick as I could. I was in shock at the time and was gasping for air. My lungs were full of something not good.
Because you think he sprayed you with poison.
I didn't know what he had.
But that's what you told me in my call.
I don't know. I don't recall that.
Now, when you say he started coming at you and you fell and you grabbed that AR, did you fall into the bathroom?
I fell into the hallway.
Object to the reference to it being an AR. I think it's been clearly established it's actually not an AR.
Just your rifle.
It's not. It's a 6.556. No, it's not.
Your weapon. When you grabbed your weapon. You had. Did you fall backwards into the bathroom?
I did. I wasn't in the bathroom. I was just in the doorway of the bathroom.
What is the bathroom directly across from in that home?
Nothing. It's just wall.
What is it directly across from?
The hall, the wall in the hall.
You sure about that?
Yeah,
It's not directly across the front door?
it's not. It's a little off-centered.
If I open that front door, I can look directly into that bathroom, can I not?
It's not directly, but you can see into the bathroom. They're off-centered.
You were within inches of the front door, is that correct?
When I was in the doorway of the bathroom, I wouldn't say inches.
At some point, after you grab the weapon and you fall and you grab the weapon, at that point, your head falling back, you were within inches of that front door.
Have you
Counsel,
objected?
No, I fell into the back.
Objection?
Approach the bench, counsel.
Oh, sweet
I-
Jesus.
I honestly still have no idea what she's establishing. At all.
Well, there's two problems. Their theory is all over the place. Their case sucks, and she's not speaking into a microphone, so you can't hear it.
Yeah, that's what was annoying me, is because I'm trying to guess the questions that he's answering.
But the reenactment kabuki was fantastic.
I've never seen anything like that.
My favorite part of this trial so far is the bailiff coming over to check the the assault weapon after he had it trained on the prosecutor for a long time in court.
Oh God. I wouldn't necessarily have. I'm not going to say it, but everybody can guess what's in my mind right now.
Oh, that was something else. I don't know what the objection is because I don't know what the question was. I'm not seeing her get anywhere with any of this.
You can see the skepticism on the judge's face every time he looks at her.
Mm-hmm.
I think at this point the judge is asking, where are you going with this cross? Because I have no idea.
Wow.
Oh, the judge is not happy. With either of them, I think.
I will say this: I thought they were crazy. Now that I've seen the cross, unless they come up with something amazing, which I don't think, it's a subset of the whole trial. If you had something great to cross on, you should have started with it, not this.
Like, how many times have you been trying to preserve the benefit of the doubt for them?
Do you put an accent reconstruction expert on here though? I think you're buying trouble. That just went so well. You've established it.
I'm not sure that you need him at this point.
But it's very easy for a reconstruction expert to be inconsistent with him on some minor point and give the prosecution something to say.
Yes, that is a fair point. That is a risk. However, I would imagine that they had the reconstruction expert and the defendant's testimonies, and they would have the reconstructions report. And I don't think that the defendant would say anything inconsistent with the report. Right? If it's a properly prepared witness.
I just don't know that it's necessary. We heard from him.
Yeah. I mean, they said they were going to do it for the afternoon.
I'm pretty sure the door was shut, and I was more in the back room.
Were you within inches of the front door?
I wasn't within inches of the front door, no.
At no time.
It passed by me on my left when I was getting away from him.
So Guillermo Ariola was shot around 3:30. And you met up with Mr. McCullough around 5:30. What were you doing in those 2 hours?
I don't think I spent that much time. Somewhere the time's off. It must have happened a little bit later in the day than I thought. I didn't have a watch on me. I wasn't paying attention to the time.
So what's the first thing you did after you saw Mr. Ariola dead in the bedroom? What's the next thing, the very next thing you did?
I went out to
Let
the,
me object. This has been asked and answered repeatedly. It's really getting repetitive.
Not in this form. Let me repeat.
I went out and washed myself up better with soap.
Well, no, you washed, and then you come back and got sick.
I never looked in on Mr. Ariola until I came back to get soap. I looked into the room and I saw the blood. I saw no breathing from his chest, from his back. And then I went into the kitchen. I got a little bit of soap and filled my palm with soap. I went back outside where the water was and washed myself off more.
Sandy, the defense might have
I don't know,
hired
not
somebody
very
to
long.
review the investigation evidence and
I
prepare
went to
a
my
report.
truck to
That's
change
what I
my
was
shirt.
referring to.
What else?
My truck was about, I don't know, 100 feet away. Then I went to the edge of the property when I saw a motorcycle and I tried waving down Mr. McCullough. I was waving my hands like this as he rode by.
But you didn't get in your truck. When he didn't respond, what did you do?
I got in my truck and drove that way to try to catch him and to use the phone up where the phone service worked.
Now, I think you were explaining on direct that the reason you didn't tell Mr. McCullough right away, you didn't tell Mr. McCullough right away, did you?
I didn't. I talked to him a little bit. I wasn't sure if he was friends with Mr. Ariola or not.
Please, please, this is not a question. If it's a yes or no, answer yes or no. If you need to explain, you do that with your attorney on the direct.
I don't think he's required to only say yes or no.
He
He's
is
allowed to
if he's-
answer questions.
Okay.
So you
This is a
didn't tell
disaster.
Mr. McCullough right away. And you said on direct, I believe, and I'm paraphrasing, you weren't sure if he was friends with Mr. Ariola or not, right?
I was using my phone too at the time.
What do you mean you were using your phone?
I was trying to get service. I was looking for bars on my phone.
While you're talking to Mr. McCullough?
Exactly.
Once again, if you did not tell him right away that you had shot a man in self-defense and you needed help.
I told him pretty quickly.
After you talked about motorcycles.
Commodore, the better
I
question
don't
is,
recall talking about motorcycles.
what part of this isn't a
That after you
disaster?
thought that you were gonna leave and then you had second thoughts and came back? You don't remember that?
I thought I talked to him the first time I arrived.
When you told him that the weapon that you shot the man with, the second man, was in the back of your truck, under your clothes that you were wearing.
I don't recall that.
And after Mr. McCullough called 911,
No, he called 911 directly. He was behind my truck calling 911. And then I got 3 bars.
sir, I haven't asked a question yet. Please. After Mr. McCullough called 911, he was on the phone with 911. You were standing there talking to him, talking. You can hear it in the background.
I was sitting in my truck. I wasn't standing there.
But would you agree that you were close enough that you could hear his back?
I'll get the clip
He
up.
was behind my truck. I couldn't see him.
Did you hear yourself on this action?
Yeah.
Who are you talking to?
I didn't hear myself on dispatch. I only heard David McCullough on dispatch.
You said you had 3 bars now. Who are you calling?
I called
It's
911.
weird because she hasn't been doing this
Yes.
for the rest of the
I
trial.
wasn't sure he was on the phone with 911. He was behind my truck, like 10 feet behind my truck. My truck's really big. It's like 27 feet long.
Did you hear Mr. McCullough on that call try to answer a dispatcher's question about whether you still had the weapon or what was happening? Mr. McCullough in fact talked to you to
No.
get information to relay to the dispatcher.
I don't recall what he said.
And you didn't call 911, even though you say you had cell phone service right there at the same time as David McCullough.
As soon as I got service, I called 911.
It is. That's
Well,
what
that's the whole
cross-examination is.
Even though you just testified that you already had 3 bars
Which is why I would like it if she spoken to the freaking microphone.
until about 13 minutes after you knew Mr. McCullough called 911.
No,
Is that correct?
that's not correct.
Since I don't hear the questions, all I am gleaning from this is that the
I
witness
called
is not wrapped.
911.
Any reason to believe that that report is wrong? The dispatcher's wrong on that?
I don't know if they got together on the time of the call, but I called 911 while Mr. McCullough was calling
Sure do.
911. I ended
This
up getting
point.
hold of BHI, Bureau of Indian Affairs, and he ended up getting hold of Sandoval County Sheriff's Department.
What do you mean got together on the time?
The time I called as soon as I
Saw
I
that
talked to
call.
Mr.
It's
McCullough out
hilarious.
my window of
It's
my
going to the
truck.
community tab.
I told him what happened. I asked him if he had bars on his phone. He said he did. Can you please call 911, let them know what happened out here? And at about the same time as he walked to the back of my truck, my phone got 3 bars on it. I dialed 911 immediately and told him my name, my phone number, and where I was at.
Why did you call your dad before you called 911?
Because I wanted someone to be out there with me. I was worried about the police arriving with guns. I wanted to have some people with me.
Why would you be concerned if you were acting in self-defense?
Because police with guns isn't exactly the safest thing you could deal with in life.
Fair enough.
She's literally asking the same questions that were on direct, and he's giving the same answers. Where are you going with this, lady? I don't get it. You're just basically giving him a second direct, but with leading questions. Please, for the love of God, be done. The people in the room can probably hear her just fine.
Yeah, they can probably hear.
Are you testifying that you weren't sure what the defendant had?
Yeah, that's what I didn't know what he had in his hand. Yeah, when we drank that night, he told me he had sprayed his neighbors with mace. I didn't know he carried it. I knew he had used it prior.
Everything he's saying is eminently reasonable.
States Exhibit 31. Or not 37. Look what he had in his hand.
If that's what they found, yes.
But you made quite a point to tell everyone you encounter to look at the mace in his hand, right?
Yeah, I wanted to make sure I had a witness of that.
You made sure of that, right?
I don't know. I just told David McCullough.
Deputies also. You found out you listened to
Yeah, I think you're right.
You wanted to make sure that everybody saw that mace in his hand, that he was hitting you with, and then he sprayed you with it.
I wanted them to know that he had a weapon, that he had something in his hand he was trying to hit me with.
Who else is hoping she sprays it by accident?
I think I told McCullough that.
I mean, you couldn't get a worse mess. They'd have to clear the courtroom.
I think I did.
Go mace a juror.
You just testified that your eyes were burning and stinging, you couldn't see.
I never said
That's a misstatement of the testimony.
I'm paraphrasing. Could you think, all right,
It's an incorrect paraphrase.
all right.
Oh, that hand gesture.
No,
They weren't.
Okay.
just the side of my face was burning.
That was cringe.
Your face was burning. Okay? Because of something he sprayed out of that canister.
That was my guess, yes.
Well, did he have anything else in his hand to spray?
I didn't see anything else.
And when, after 911 was called, first by Mr. McCullough and then by me, Mr. McCullough offered to go, and you wanted him to go witness the body, correct?
I asked him to go, yes.
And you used those words, witness the body.
I can't recall that.
And again, despite her behavior, he is maintaining his cool.
You made sure that he saw
He's been
the hand
utterly polite.
in the hand, correct?
I don't recall that either. I just told him to go take a look.
And then, when it was obvious there was no help available for Mr. Ariola, you were still there with Mr. McCullough, David McCullough, right?
He left.
But you were there at first, right?
Yeah, I was on the property.
Did you go in the house with him?
I wasn't sure about that. McCullough testified that I did, but I don't recall. I thought I stayed outside, but it's hard to remember everything. And mind you, I was devastated and definitely in shock.
Good answer.
If that's what you call it, I'm not sure exactly what that means.
Mr. McCullough said he was gonna go out to the point by Capitol T, so he could direct the deputies in, because the place is hard to find, right?
That's right.
And you said, I'll be right behind you, right?
I'm not sure.
But you didn't go right behind him.
I'm not sure. I know I drove back toward that direction to go meet the police, but that's when I ran into them.
The deputies didn't get there till almost an hour to the ranch, is that right?
Oh, it took more than that. I was there a long time.
And you were just leaving your property when the deputies are arriving on scene.
I'm going to object. That's a misstatement of the testimony. It wasn't his property.
I believe I said the property.
When the police didn't arrive, I started driving out to go back to Cabazon, but I ran into the police about a quarter of a mile away from the property with their lights on. That's when I stopped my truck and turned off the engine so I could hear them.
Did you know any of these deputies before?
No.
So do you know any reason why they would make up or lie about what you did or didn't do or said or didn't say?
I never called anybody a liar.
But you would agree that your testimony is different than what they testified to.
I don't believe they reconstructed the site.
He's doing an
the
amazing
scene.
job.
I think I have a little better account of everything since I was the only witness.
Right, that's not what I asked you, sir.
Go ahead and ask me again, please.
I said it earlier. This is the first time that I've seen a defendant hold up so well on the stand. He's doing brilliantly. Like we were saying earlier, we might not need another witness after him.
You talked to the deputies on scene and David McCullough. You never told them that you were screaming for him to stop.
I wasn't screaming. I was waving my arms. He was too far away for voice to work. He was literally a quarter mile away when he rode by on his motorcycle.
Back at the scene, you spoke of Mr. Arnold. I think
Yeah, something like that.
earlier that you were screaming at him to stop as he was.
Every morning I wake up and I
did
read the
yell
New York
stop.
Post, and it reminds me why I
My
moved to
question
Florida.
to you is, you never said that, even though you were claiming self-defense. You admit that you said that to the deputies, right?
I think so.
Yeah. But you never said, I told him to stop, and he never stopped. You didn't say anything like that, did you?
I was trying not to make any statements until I had an attorney.
So the answer is no. When you were telling them other things voluntarily.
This is where you start
never
objecting.
Told him that.
Told him what?
That he screamed, or you screamed for him to stop.
I gave very brief statements.
Is that a no?
I don't recall.
Oh, happy birthday. God, please be done.
So after Mr. McCullough left, you didn't follow him right away. What did you do?
I sat in my truck.
Why didn't you follow Mr. McCullough when you said, I'll be right behind you?
I don't recall that.
And isn't that when you took the rifle out of the back of your truck and propped it up against the porch during that time?
I don't recall when I did the rifle. Mind you, I was definitely in shock. I don't recall everything that happened. I definitely had more concerns about the police officers arriving with rifles and guns. I was definitely concerned about that.
Well, in fact, and that's one of the conversations, three-way conversation that Mr. McCullough had with dispatch while you were there. They're saying, don't touch the weapon, right?
I was where?
You were standing right next to him, well, sitting in the truck right next to him. You were close enough that you could have a conversation.
When did we have a conversation?
When David McCullough was on the phone with dispatch.
He was behind my truck. We weren't in communication at that point.
You were having a conversation?
I had a conversation before he dialed 911.
So that voice where you're talking to dispatch and then talking to you, that's not you?
I called the Bureau of Indian Affairs. My phone rang to the Bureau of Indian Affairs. His phone rang through to Sandoval County.
So are you going to answer my question, sir?
Rephrase it, please. Maybe I'm misunderstanding you.
Mr. McCullough was on the phone with 911, listened to the 4 times because the call got dropped 3 times. At one point, the dispatch is asking where the gun is. And Mr. McCullough is getting information from you at the same time he's talking to dispatch. Do you not recall hearing your own voice?
He wasn't talking to me. He was behind my truck looking at my license plate when he was calling 911. And then I got on the phone. I couldn't have had a conversation because I was busy on the phone talking to 911.
13 minutes later.
I don't know. I think it was right away.
You never told anyone that you encountered that day that you were hit by a can of mace or that he was attempting to hit you with a
He
can
had
of mace.
glancing blows for sure. I felt something up.
Sir,
What?
please listen to my question.
Okay.
You never told anyone that you encountered, not David McCullough, not the deputies on scene, not the reporter, that you were hit with he was trying to strike you with a can of mace. You never said
Because
that.
she has no idea what
I
the
never
hell
said
else
it
to
when.
do.
When you talked to David McCullough, when you talked to the deputies, when you talked to David Williams.
I can't recall.
You never told anyone about one of you hitting that heater.
I don't recall.
You never told anyone that your skin was steaming.
I did. I told the police officers.
This is once again this really obnoxious prove a negative bullshit. And I hate it. I find it really, really sick. What he did do is immediately clear the weapon, clean himself up because he was maced, go and try and find help, and call the police.
No,
And
I did not.
They don't even try to poke holes in that.
No, there's no way
It's all
to.
right at my feet.
It's corroborated by their own witnesses.
It sure is.
I'm going to object to this question. I think that that is a question that should have been posited to the medical investigator, the forensic pathologist, and not to a lay witness who has no experience with forensics.
We can work something out, Kathy.
So you don't know.
Please repeat your question.
I objected.
Griggsy, he left the scene to go get cell service so he can call 911. That's not incriminating.
And they have the 911 call like it happened.
Other than calling 911 and putting the rifle weapon up against the porch, did you do anything else to document that it was self-defense?
Your Honor, may we approach?
Griggsy, honest to God, I have no idea where the hell you're getting that from.
Would it be safe to say, sir, that your memory of what happened that day is clear then or now?
I don't know. It's been 2.5 years, so I've been trying to play this back in my head every day since it happened. I would say I'd have a better bigger picture of it now after working with my attorneys and knowing more about the canister and everything else. That's a restroom. It looks like a door. The door into the mudroom.
Yeah, Griggsy, I think you probably are, because even the police said that there was no cell service at the scene.
I said that, yes.
And he was able to get bars when he drove out to the road and found
that's the door
another
into the mudroom.
bystander, and they both called.
That
There's
that
another
it was
door.
dark, at least at night.
Yeah, you go through the main door and then you go through a screen door to get outside.
About 3 feet.
3 feet. No, it's about 6 to 8 feet. It's a pretty good sized little porch.
That bedroom, if I told you it was 10 feet by 8 feet, would that be about right? The bedroom where-
Yeah,
where-
probably so. Probably 12 by 8.
Griggsy, my man, there wasn't a landline. It was a trailer. This is the
Excuse
middle
me?
of nowhere, New Mexico.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the investigators said he wasn't sure if they actually were hooked up to the power grid.
Agreed, and thank you very much, some old dude. Very generous. Yeah, she. That's the thing. She keeps questioning him on things that even if she got him in an inconsistency, really don't help.
That's the thing, is she basically is just repeating the direct questioning. I guess to maybe trip him on something, but all that's doing is making him seem more credible.
I just have a few questions for you, Mr. Cummings.
Okay.
On cross-examination.
Oh my God, finally somebody that can use a microphone.
Ms. Romo asked you several times if you were startled by Mr. Ariola's arrival at the property that day.
Yeah, I remember her asking that.
Yeah. And you said that you didn't mean to do that. You didn't mean to have the rifle in the house when he showed up.
Yeah, that's right. I wasn't expecting him.
So what do you mean, though? Why were you concerned about the rifle being in the house with him?
It just wasn't appropriate. I didn't think I should have it in there when someone else showed up. Kind of hunter safety. It should have been put away, but I didn't expect him to show up so quickly.
Okay, so this is just a gun safety concern.
Yes.
And Ms. Romo had you get down on the ground and basically show how you were crawling and retreating away from Mr. Ariola. Do you remember that
I do.
demonstration? And Ms. Romo was standing over you and swinging her hand at you.
Yep.
How many times did you go down on the ground because of Mr. Ariola shoving you?
3 times.
And after the first time he shoved you to the ground, did you shoot him?
Repeat that, please.
After the first time he attacked you and shoved you to the ground, did you shoot him?
No, not at all.
After the second time that he attacked you and shoved you to the ground, did you shoot him?
No.
After the third time that he shoved you and tackled you to the ground, did you shoot him then?
I did.
And was it an immediate thing, or did you still retreat and fight?
I was still retreating and fighting, trying to block him.
And when you were retreating in that
Great
back
redirect.
bedroom away from Mr. Ariola, you said he still had that canister and he was still swinging his right hand?
He did. He had
And-
something in his hand,
And what was he doing with his left hand?
grabbing the rifle.
And when you said that, and you were demonstrating how he was grabbing it, he was grabbing at the scope.
Yeah, the top of it.
Okay, is that when the scope cap was ripped off?
That must have been when it came off.
Okay. And after the scope cap comes off, You are still trying to retreat away from him. Is that correct?
I'm out of room at this point, so I'm fighting to get to my feet.
Okay.
Great redirect.
And
Great
what is he
answers.
doing?
He's swinging with his right hand, swinging, trying to hit me in the side of the head.
And what's
And
he doing with his left hand?
He's trying to pull the gun out of my hand.
Just a clarification. Did you call 911 first or your father first?
I think I called 911 first.
Awesome.
Yes. Very effective redirect.
I don't know if I would even ask any further questions at this point.
And when you spoke to Mr. McCullough that day, did you give him a full play-by-play description of everything that had happened?
I didn't feel it was appropriate.
What did you think was appropriate to tell him?
I told him that some guy attacked me and that I shot him,
And why did you tell him that?
so he would know what happened, so he could help me and be a witness to it.
And you wanted him to call 911, right?
I sure did.
No further questions.
What a great witness. Really nice, punchy redirect. Great way to let the jury go to lunch.
Yep.
Because I imagine they're probably going to go to lunch at this point.
I would rest if I was them. I
don't know if you need anything more.
And be back about 10 after 1. We'll start at 1:15. All right.
Well, 10 after 1, they said.
So what would that be? That'd be 3:10 my time? Yeah.
Okay.
And
Yep, I agree, Robert.
Yeah, I think that this is over.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know what else you do at this point. I mean,
that what blew me away. I didn't think they would put it on there. I apologize to the defense counsels. I was shocked.
Yeah.
But now that I see the way he handled himself, the fact that he didn't have priors, it probably was a good idea to put him on the stand.
Yeah, and that's the thing though, is that 95% of the time you don't want to put your person on the stand because they have something that you can pull out of the closet. But he handled himself brilliantly. He gave a story that made sense, was absolutely consistent with the evidence elicited during the prosecution's case, and is entirely consistent with self-defense.
Yep.
So I don't know what more you need.
And you got to hear. So we've been sitting on this trial, and now we got to hear from a participant how this whole thing happened.
Yeah.
So that's wild stuff. You know, I was gonna say it like in the beginning of the trial, but I'm like, this is giving credit for not much. But boy, as opposed to a lot of these defendants, certainly Brooks or some lunatic like that, he did sit there and just look reasonable and shut his hole for the first 4 days of the trial.
Yeah, that is true.
It doesn't sound like much, but for a lot of criminal defendants, that would be a tough get.
Yeah. And I mean, even when the prosecutor was being, in my opinion, probably a little too heavy-handed with him, he was totally chill. Like, he relaxed, he answered the question straightforward, stayed consistent with the story, and I thought came across as extremely credible.
Yeah. That was really interesting. Okay, I'm gonna close this down. I'm gonna set up another stream for 110.
All right, sounds good.
For 210, my 10, whatever. For about an hour and a half from now.
Yep, I'll be back. I got some stuff I got to take care of as well.
Yeah, you got a liquor store run?
That might be the case.
I might have to go down to Walgreens and get a 12 of White Claws. I might have to for the afternoon.
Well, I'll see you on the other side, brother.
All right, thanks, Lyle. See you soon. Thanks everybody for coming out. We'll be back.